Okay, people, here we are again. Hello, everybody. So now I think I'd like you to ask questions, please, based on your intense discussion during lunch, which I'm quite sure you had. Questions, people. Anybody questions online? Questions.
Okay, so I was asking, does practicing the green tower practice help to recognize our attachments or beliefs?
You mean that's based on the idea that tantra is related to working with the delusions, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think in the simplest sense, okay, it's a good question. That is the psychology of tantra. It's actually the most sophisticated level where we can utilize the delusions. But I think for us ordinary people, doing the practice, it won't do that at all. No, it won't. It'll just lift us up. It'll help us. It'll sow the seeds to connect with Tara and to connect with the tantric teachings, and it'll lift us up, and it'll help us develop a more positive attitude of seeing ourselves as positive and loving and uplifting. I mean, see the positive qualities. That's really good for us in the most practical way. But until we're advanced practitioners and got single point of concentration and are serious tantric yogis, we're not going to be able to work with any of it. There's no sort of, it's a very technical thing that happens only at a more advanced level. But at the simplest level, this is why Lama got us doing it from day one, really. It helps us, instead of dealing with attachment and anger and trying to control it, you're simply sitting, doing the practice in the most simple way, and you're identifying with those parts of yourself, which helps you actually, the main benefit, it helps you activate your virtues. I would say in the simplest level, that's the direct result. But it's the more sophisticated level where you're working with the delusions. Or transforming them. That's another discussion. I'd say that. Do you understand?
Yes,
yeah. So that's the real benefit for most of us. And that's why it's perfectly permissible to do these practices. I mean, some of the practices, okay, I'm not going to go into any of the details, but there are 4, and I don't know much about it anyway, but there are 4 levels of tantric practice, 4 levels of deity yoga, as they call it. And the first one is called action or kriya tantra, and some others as well. But they and Tara, for example, and these levels of Tara and Chenrezig and Manjushri belong there, and you're permitted to do those without having received an empowerment. But there are more advanced practices where you can't do them unless you've received an empowerment and have other prerequisites. Yeah, do you understand? So yeah. So for most of us, I mean, the way Lama taught from day one, basically. I know when I first came to Kopan, I'd done 1 month Lamrim course. Actually, no, that's not true. I had done another one. I did a Chenrezig teaching, but really I had no other qualifications. And there I was typing these practices, and you know, and we were doing these lovely Tara practices. So they're really helpful. They're very nice to do. People love always. You do a guided we'll do a guided meditation, and then it's very uplifting, you know. But also, yeah, we'll do. You'll see. But it's got other functions as well. But I think that's the answer probably. Yeah.
Erin has a question online.
Yes.
She just needs to unmute herself.
Yes, sweetheart, talk to me.
Hi, Venerable. You mentioned earlier when you become Buddha, you can manifest in thousands of ways and help sentient beings, and that it's also similar to the definition of a Christian God. And my wonder would be where all the Buddhas are when there's a disaster or something happens. Could they prevent it? And I used to wonder this about Christian God also, like if you were.
No, Erin, it's a really good question. Okay, it's a really good question. This really gets us to the very nature of what a Buddha is and how karma works and why, you know, what kind of function they have. Because if we say that they've got power, see, this is why we need emptiness, okay? Why we need dependent arising and emptiness teachings to even understand how this functions. Because when you hear on the face of it, when you hear all-powerful, omnipotent, and you hear that about the Christian God, I suppose Muslims talk about all-powerful as well, isn't it? It's exactly the same. Then immediately on the face of it, it sounds like, well, if they're all-powerful, how come they don't stop all the bad things? This is the commonest question. And I mean, I've heard many people, Jews, Christians, Muslims, who give up God when really bad things happen. They blame God. Well, how come he didn't intervene and use his power? Which seems on the face of it quite reasonable. Do you understand, isn't it? So, of course, the Christians talk about free will, you know, talk about how there's more to it than just that. And and in that sense, God leaves it to us. He makes us. I don't know all the logical reasoning of Creator. He makes us, then he gives us this chance to choose. So it's up to us, it's a way of saying it. Well, the Buddhist one is very similar to that, in the sense that you have to create, you have to do the action. So okay, so I'll use a good example, Erin. I like this example. Some of you might know Harry Sutton. He's an American guy. He's a yogi, been meditating up in the caves for years and years and years. Of course, if you meet him, I always think he looks like Father Christmas. We call Santa Claus Father Christmas in Australia. Probably we call him Santa Claus now because we've become Americanized. We call him Father Christmas.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
I know, Father Christmas is so nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Father Christmas, And then anyway, Father Christmas is all fat and jolly. And Harry looks like fat and jolly. Harry's this big fat guy with a big beard, kind of roars with laughter, ho, ho, ho. And whenever you see Harry, I mean, since he's a younger man, but now he's older, of course, you'd see him, wherever Harry was, Harry'd be at the back. Harry'd be at the back row of the teachings. Harry'd be sweeping the floor. Harry'd be doing the dishes. And everybody who ever met Harry was convinced that he was their best friend. Because Harry just loved everybody and was adorable to everybody. So he looked like a jolly, nice man. Well, according to the way you hear and see the stories about Harry and hear what his history is, he must be a holy being, right? So this story, I love this story to show, and then I'll explain it. I'll use it as an example and then explain. So there's Harry, spent years and years meditating. And even this is interesting. In the West, we think, oh, he's up in the cave meditating. What's he doing? Watching his neighbor. What's he doing? Why isn't he out there doing something? Well, he's in training. Basically, meditation retreat for years and years, these great yogis. You're training to become a bodhisattva. You're training to become a yogi. You're training to realize emptiness. You're training to become a Buddha. It's serious, intense, full on, 100% training. That's what he's doing, right? That's what he's doing. So basically, there he is. But this nice story. He had this cave for a while, way up in the mountains. And up above where Lama Zopa's cave is in the Sherpa country. And it's the early 90s. I remember it was after Lama Yeshe passed away, but Lama Zopa was at Kopan and Harry was at Kopan in Kathmandu. And when he's on the way, he was getting ready to go to his cave. And you got to, you go out, you pack your bag and you go and you either walk up for 10 days or you get the plane to Lukla and then you walk you walk for 4 days or something. So basically he's walking up there. There must have been a nun with him who she must have first told the story. But since then I'd hear this story and then I verified it with Harry. And this is what he told me. So he's walking up and at some point, first of all, at Kopan, Lama Zopa Rinpoche had a dream that Harry would die. Well, my comment there is Lama Zopa never slept. So he's just being humble, but he had clairvoyance. He could see clearly with his clairvoyance that there was danger and to tell Harry not to go. So it was too late. Harry had left, which means it's before cell phones, so he didn't get the message, right? It was he was too late. So then Rinpoche asked this amazing yogi, Geshe Lama Kontrog, one who lived up the mountains naked for years and years and was in Vajrayogini's Pure Land, who was now living at Kopan. He asked Geshe Lama Kontrog to pray for Harry. That's the story. So meanwhile, Harry told the story. He's going up the mountains, and at some point on the walk up, the normal path had been blocked by rocks or something. So they took a side path, which was extremely treacherous, And if you've been up on those mountains, even the regular paths are treacherous. I mean, I nearly fell over and got knocked off by a yak one time, and that was just a regular path. I mean, I remember the yak herd who got mad at me because I must have upset his yak, But meanwhile, I didn't fall off, but you could have. And I always wonder about it. I mean, I have to say this. I make jokes about it. I've been up like 4 times leading treks, and I'm sorry, I just can't bear it.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry. People go, the mountain's amazing. And I think, what do you mean amazing? Where, It's hard work. You're puffing your pants. You hurt it's painful, exhausting, walk up these wretched mountains. And people say it's amazing, but you don't see it because if you look in the sky when you're walking, you fall over. So you've got to stop and look at the mountains and go, wow, the mountains. Well, you never get there, So when you're walking, you're trudging along, watching your feet. I'm sorry, it was just not pleasure. I tried hard to enjoy it, but I couldn't enjoy it. I'd say, there's the mountains. Wow. But nothing happened. Anyway, I did it several times. Meanwhile, this time Harry's up there with his pack on his back. And suddenly it's a certain point, there are 4 Sherpas, these 4 porters. Well, if you've been up there a few times, these porters are these amazing human beings. These little, mostly younger, sometimes older, skinny little guys with their flip-flops. I mean, I noticed too with Westerners, because when I first prepared to go up there, I was so nervous. I'd never walked up a mountain. I'd never even walked up a hill. I just didn't walk, period. I walked in my house, I walked flat on the street. But walking up a mountain would be a bizarre thing to do for me, you know. And I was so nervous. I looked at all these things for shoes. I did so much research about shoes. You practically have to have a PhD to buy the right shoes to go to the mountains. I could not believe these shoes, and they're hundreds of dollars, and they're this, and the architecture, there's long articles about them. I could not believe it, you know. And then these shoes with special necks on them, and I mean, I could not believe these shoes. And then in the end, I bought these simple shoes made by a minimalist company that just had rock climbing soles. And you just flop them on with little canvas tops. They were like plimsolls. They're the most delicious shoes on the planet, and I was perfectly fine with them. And then I noticed that the Sherpas used their flip-flops. I thought, this fuss and bother about silly shoes and protecting your ankles and everything. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, never mind. There's Harry. And suddenly there are 4 Sherpas walking down, these porters with their 50-kilo backs on their back. And of course, they're bent over double, and all you do is see your feet, you know. They're so intense, and they're happily doing it. They're such wonderful people. It's their job. The 4 of these porters walking down really close, really intense, really narrow, really treacherous. And the first thought Harry had was, 4 of them, 1 of me. Now, if you've done any of the Bodhisattva teachings and meditations, one of the practices to try to get the ridiculous ego out of the way, you use logic to argue with ego, then 1 is only 1 and even 2 is more than 1, therefore 2 are more important. Of course, ego doesn't want to hear that. So the first thing he said to himself, without effort, oh, 4 of them, 1 of me. So obviously by this point, you've known he must have meditated. He must have trained his mind to think this. Do you understand? So he went to the side of the cliff. He went to the edge of the cliff automatically. The next second, because it's all so close and intense, he then says to himself, if they knock me, I won't hold on. Now, you listen, think about that. It's sort of, if you are sitting there playing tennis and you see someone hit an amazing ball back to Federer, you know he's trained for years, don't you? It's not as accidental. Well, if you hear a person have a second thought when you're preparing to go fall down a cliff, say, I won't hold on. Excuse me, that can't come naturally. So obviously he's trained his mind in bodhicitta. That must be their bodhicitta. That's the proof of the pudding. You with me? It really is powerful. No drama. He's not going, oh, I'm a bodhisattva, I'm going to let you go, I will fall down if it doesn't matter, blah, blah. No, he just stands there. And so, of course, they knock him. And, of course, he's falling. And he doesn't hold on. So he said, I mean, basically his feet are still on the mountain. He's falling back. His pack is pulling him. And he said, I had a psychic vision of the entire fall. And I saw myself crash to the ground. I saw my body crash to the ground. And then he said he felt the hands of Geshe Lama Konchog pushing him forcefully, and he reversed direction and fell onto the path. So now that's a Buddha, Erin. That's Erin, are you there?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Right here.
Are you there, Erin?
Right here.
Okay, good, I can see you. So fine, happy. So that's there you go. So that's an example of a person. That's not just Harry's mind having a vision. That actually, in reality, is this person called Geshe Lama Konchog, who looked like a grumpy old grandpa, but in fact was obviously a highly realized being. He was able to manifest his own body, manifest himself. The people wouldn't have seen him there, but he was able to manifest himself and actually save Harry's life. Can you hear that?
Yes.
Now, then the next obvious question is, well, how come they're not doing it for everybody? Isn't it? That's the obvious question, isn't it? Well, this is the part that feels difficult. You don't have the merit. Then what merit means is, you see, in other words, the Buddha from his own side. Okay, I'll use an example. You could, let's say, Erin, let's say you could be the best herbalist on the planet. You could learn every imaginable herb, you know every person you see, you know how to heal them. That's a possibility in the world, isn't it? To really be a good anything. So you are qualified, you are capable, you have power, you know how to heal people. But you can't force those herbs down people's throats, can you? You know, unless a person even thinks about herbology or whatever it's called, if they have to learn to know about you, they have to learn to come to your door, they knock on the door and they say, please heal me. You can't walk around the street dragging people by the ear into your room and force feed them with herbs. You know you could heal them, but it's a two-way thing. It's a dependent arising. You have the power to heal them, but they have to have the merit, the courage, the karma to know you and meet you and be healed by you. Do you understand me? Do you understand that part?
Yes, I do.
You get the idea. It's the same with the Buddha. So Harry obviously was a highly evolved being. He had the karma to be helped. He'd practiced so much. He had this incredible bodhicitta, that point where he was happy to give his life for 4 people. That amount of merit he had, that created the cause for him to be helped by Geshe Lama Konchog. Can you get the concept there?
Yes, yes, I can. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like the vaccines. That if people won't take them, they're not going to save you from the disease, right?
That's right. You got to play. In other words, it's a two-way street. It's like that's what depend. In this sense, it's simply dependent arising. The Buddha has the power to heal, but we have to be wanted to be healed. We have to be ready to be healed. We have to have the karma to be healed. We have to know there's many things we have to do from our side. And this seems sort of like, almost again, it's a bit cruel. I'm falling over the mountain because you haven't got the karma, I can't help them. But literally, you're unable to be helped unless you create the cause. So it's very much it's a really quite literally dependent arising there. I think that the best way I can say it.
Well, that's probably the best answer I've heard to that question when I've asked spiritual people.
Oh, okay, good. So I think the thing is, so in other words, and also this is the other thing, when we understand that, okay, the same, we can't see the Buddhas, even the lowest level bodhisattvas. There are 10 stages of the bodhisattva path. Once you've realized emptiness, they call them Arya bodhisattvas, these superior beings. And you go through these 10 stages of development before you get to Buddhahood. And even the lowest level bodhisattva has already got the power to manifest in their own mind in at least 100 different bodies at the same time. Now, the thing is, our ability to see what a Buddha is impossible. I mean, first of all, the mind can't be observed. So the Buddhas manifest in bodies. So then we look at a picture, let's say, of Shakyamuni Buddha 2,500 years ago with his curly hair and his little bump on his head and all those things. We say, oh, there's the Buddha. We'll say, there's the Buddha. But I think if you were even back there at the time of all that time when he was around, he would have looked like one of the hundreds of thousands of sadhus crawling the streets of India, He looked like every one of the sadhus. You can't say, oh, there's the Buddha. He wouldn't walk around with a special halo and a sign saying, I'm a Buddha. You can't tell. He wouldn't know who he was because he's looking like a regular human. So the Buddhas, and this is why I like the example of Jesus Christ being the manifestation of God in a human body. It's the same concept. Are you with me, people? It's exactly the same. But they say it's just one person. Buddha, God, out of compassion, that's how they say it, something like that, manifests as this person called Jesus. It's exactly the same as the Bodhisattva path. But if you didn't, let's say you were around at that time, or the time of the Buddha, you saw all these sadhus, you can't tell one from another. You wouldn't say one was a Buddha. You don't know because you can't tell. And because you can't tell what a Buddha is because they're coming as a regular human being. They look like you and me. So you can't possibly say who a Buddha is. So the fact of the matter is there are countless beings around the world who must be Buddhas, but you can't tell. They're not looking like a holy person. So there's this other story, which I love, this lovely story. Rinpoche told this story years ago. We all know the Dalai Lama is said to be a Buddha, right? We've heard that, isn't it? He's said to be a Buddha. Well, I mean, how do I know? He looks like a nice Tibetan man, as far as I'm concerned. I've seen him around for 50 years. Every time I see him, he seems a nice person still. He kind of increases in my view every time I hear about him. He's a nice person. I hear that he's a Buddha, but I'm not a Buddha. So how I could possibly tell? And that's a reasonable point, because if you have never heard of tennis, okay, you've never heard of such a thing as tennis, and you saw Roger Federer, do you see my point? You would never say, oh, there's a tennis player. You wouldn't know, would you? But if you knew tennis really well, you could honestly, I promise you could even say, oh, he must be a tennis player. Look at his hand, because you'd know tennis. It's really obvious. If you don't know tennis, you'd not recognize a tennis player. That's just a tennis player. We're talking about Buddha here, please. And a Buddha, by definition, can't exist looking like a Buddha, because the Buddha, even Shakyamuni, wasn't looking like a Buddha. He was looking like a human being. Now, if you have clairvoyance and you're a highly evolved being, you would see at the same time you saw Shakyamuni or the Dalai Lama, and I'll tell you the story, you would see the subtle light body of the Sambhogakaya. You'd see this radiant light body. So that, that Khandrolo, that Lama, that Lama Zopa says, my first lady Lama, he said. When I was there in 2019, he said, she's my first lady Lama, he said. He's got about 150 lamas, that's one of them. So Khandrolo, when she was a little girl, Lama Zopa said she was born as Vajrayogini, she didn't have to study or anything. She showed the aspect of having all this knowledge since a little girl, which obviously means she's done the job before. So there she was in Tibet as a young girl, a young teenager, 12, 13. She decided on her own to go over the mountains to Dharamsala to meet His Holiness. She wanted to meet His Holiness, and she wanted to offer this long life puja, this special, complicated long life puja. Well, you know, she's a little girl, right? And who's going to listen to some little girl? Even Tibetans see a little girl. I mean, she's not even a little boy; she's a little girl. You know, I'm sorry. Who is she? Nobody. I'm special. I'm Vajrayogini. No, you know. She's a little girl with a little waif. So anyway, when she would see His Holiness in Dharamsala, she'd faint because she'd see the Sambhogakaya, she'd see the light body. Do you understand? She'd see the Buddha in a subtle form because she had those realizations. Anyway, apparently she was desperate to get to see His Holiness, and nobody would pay attention to her. And she had a meeting with Kirti Senchab Rinpoche. Of course, he could see who she was. He said, "I will build a golden bridge between you and His Holiness." So she organized, and he told his monks to do exactly what she said, to organize this complicated puja. And she went to some little cave there related to Tilopa, near Dharamsala, and the monks were there, and she asked them to give her a little container, and she got the container, and she picked up this rock, and she squeezed it, and all this nectar came out, and she filled this little cup, and then she offered the nectar to His Holiness, and he drank the lot, you know. Anyway, so that she could see the Buddha at this subtle level. Otherwise, you just see a nice human being, you know. So anyway, with His Holiness, this is the story Lama Zopa told, that during that time, soon after they came, of course, His Holiness and all the Tibetan holy lamas, the old ones, were desperate to find land to build monasteries so you can carry on the lineages before everything died, you know, everything died away. They were desperate for this, and they were negotiating with the Indian government. And so there's hundreds of thousands of acres down in the south of India, which now, of course, we know are like little Tibet, hundreds of monasteries, huge, you know, this place. But that's so kind, the Indian government. And they were negotiating to get these hundreds of thousands of acres so they could start building their monasteries. So the story is something like this. Rinpoche told it. There's one of the Indian minister, and again, I've told this story 1,000 times, and I love it. His Holiness minister went down from Dharamsala. So how you do that in those days, you'd take the bus down the hill to Patankot to the station. We'd climb on the train, and you'd go 12 hours down to Delhi. And Delhi is like on the plains and boiling hot in the, you know, in the summer and everything. It was where the government was. So he was down there trying to get a meeting with his Indian, you know, in his office, and the Indian minister. And so the bureaucracy, being what it was impossible. So he gave up and couldn't get a meeting and went back to Dharamsala all frustrated. And His Holiness says, "It's okay, it'll be fine. You go back down immediately to Delhi." So he did. And that day, the Indian minister's little boy was in the office with his daddy. And the Tibetan was talking to the Indian minister, little boy, and the little boy expressed the wish for a dog. Well, the Tibetan was delighted to grease the wheels. "I'll get you a dog," you know. So he went outside, and there was a sadhu, and the sadhu had a dog, and he said, "Can I buy you a dog?" And he bought the dog, and he gave it to the little boy. Little boy's over the moon, happy, "Daddy, I've got a little dog," and the daddy's happy. Everything works, you know. The wheels are greased. So as Rinpoche said, the dog and the sadhu were manifestations of the Dalai Lama's mind. This is what these people are doing all the time. Okay, I know it sounds like science fiction. It's all in the literature. It's all there, and the techniques for how to do it are all there, not lost. So that dog, and this is the thing now. So there's that dog. So believe me, it's not like it was Dalai Lama pretending to be a dog. Like, you know, I was thinking the dog winking. I'm really the Dalai Lama, you know. It wasn't that dog with a halo. It didn't act like holy. It acted like a dog, looked like a dog, peed like a dog, and died like a dog. But it wasn't a dog. See, the thing is about becoming Tara, if this is the Bodhisattva teachings, it's not Tantra, this is the Bodhisattva teachings. If we don't know this, how can you think you can turn to some green lady? It sounds like a joke, you know? Do you understand? So we have to have all the preliminary teachings first. And the technology of it's all there in the teachings. It's all there, you know. So that the sadhu and the dog, so it's not as if the dog had to be born from a dog's womb. You could manifest as a dog. You could manifest as a sadhu whenever you liked. And this is the thing, this is all explained. Honestly, it is literally explained technologically in the tantric teachings, based on the concept of the wind energies and the mind and what form is and how it functions. It's all there explained how this can be. It's not something mystical that you have to have faith in. Are you hearing me, people? It's all there in the Buddhist teachings, in the literature over the centuries. It's incredible. So then how do we not know who a Buddha is, you know? We do not know. So there's Erin, the best herbalist on the planet. But if you just see this American lady, and you don't like Americans, well, that's the end of you. You don't even realize you've got this jewel there, but you don't like Americans, so you're as blind as a bat. And that's what we walk. So and this is where, again, this is the point now when we're going to discuss this now about the mind and how it functions. This is the crucial thing to understand. First, we talk about the basic level, renouncing harming others, which is the beginning of renouncing suffering. That's karma. Now the next level. So are we understanding? Are we communicating, Erin? Good, darling. Well done. Okay, good, sweetheart. So, okay, now let's see why we need to understand the mind. Oh, this is so important in Buddhism because the word mind is common to everybody. We hear about anger and love. We know those words. We hear about attachment. We know that word. It sounds simple, you know, but the Buddha's view is so fundamentally different in many ways. So first of all, the mind is not physical. Of course, you can't prove that immediately, can you? Nor can you prove that E equals MC squared in the beginning, can you? So you take it as a hypothesis. Excuse me, you can't even prove that 1 + 1 is 2 in the beginning, can you? Think about this. In order to prove that 1 + 1 is 2, you've heard it for the first time as a little girl. You've never heard such an idea. Oh, mummy, they just told me that 1 + 1 is 2. Wow, I've never heard that before. So how can you prove it? You have to first, you don't first say, oh, that's ridiculous. What are you talking about? To your teacher, when you're 5, You learn it theoretically. You put it down in your book, 1 + 1 is 2. You have no idea what it means, but you've got to think the thought first, don't you? That means you take it as a hypothesis. That's what it means. You've got to act as if 1 + 1 really does equal 2, first theoretically, and then you prove it. But you've got to start with the thought. That's all we're discussing here. You start with the thought. The mind is not physical. Don't squash it down your throat, because if you're thinking see, if you're a Christian, you can't prove it. Well, you can prove certain things, but you can't finally prove God, because that means you are God. And you can't. So you have to have faith. But here you have to prove it. So first you start with the concept: mind is not physical. Mind does not come from a creator. Mind does not come from your mummy and daddy. Mind has got these subtle levels of cognition. And finally, the mind is pure in its nature and can be transformed into the mind of a Buddha. These are basic principles, the basic idea. So you take that as your view. So now we look at the mind and how we transform it. What do we have to understand it? So we looked before. You got the psychological model. And you've got the epistemological model. We just touched on one concept there, that we've got the way it functions, sensory and mental. Right? Okay. And even within that, first of all, sensory is just that bare bones capacity of the sensory conscious to cognize shape, color, sound, and so on. And then the real part of the mind, where the workshop is, as Rinpoche says, is your mental consciousness. So now within the mental consciousness, there are 2 main levels of how it functions. One is called conceptual, and one is called perception. Now that word's simple enough in English, but in Buddhist psychology, it's got a really specific meaning. And the only way to say it is, it's a subtle level of mind. You can only have perception at the mental level, at a subtler level where you're beyond the conceptual level. And that we don't posit, so we just have to say the words, We don't posit that in our culture. It's only when you've got single point of concentration and you've literally gone beyond the grosser conceptual level can you train your mind to have direct, non-conceptual perception of all the different stages of the path, karma, emptiness, blah, 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 It's a much subtler level of mind, and we don't posit it in neuroscience. So the best you can do is hear the words, right? So we've got this grosser level. At the grosser level is the conceptuality. So now we live at the conceptual level. Until you get single point of concentration, you cannot have direct perception. You can't possibly. It's a highly evolved state of mind. So we live at the conceptual level. Now that already is a huge shock. So now we go to the psychological model and look at that. So if we're looking at the psychological model, which means the mental consciousness, where how it works, then you've got it when we realize what we're talking about is only at the level of conceptuality. And that's a big surprise, because that includes thoughts, conceptual thoughts. When we say conceptual, we think of the brain, clever thoughts like math and, theories. Oh, that's conceptual. Then we think of emotions, and we think it's another kettle of fish altogether. But this is another level of conceptuality. It's a grosser level that has an emotional component. And we have to understand this. And I'll explain it. And if we don't get this, we can't possibly practice Tantra properly, No way. You can't transform it if you don't know what it is, So what does it mean by that even emotions are conceptual? This, I mean, so this, okay. In the mental consciousness, and we first of all look at this, in the mental consciousness, we can look into 3 levels. There are three categories of states of mind. 3 only. There's no 4th category. One lot is the neurotic, delusional, disturbing, distressing afflictions, as they call them. The mental afflictions. The term they use is afflictions. I mean, she never used that word, you know. Why? Because we don't use it. It's a weird word. You just kind of knew. I don't like using it either, but it's a good word, affliction, a mental affliction. It's a really interesting concept. So how would we say it? This is shocking. Mental illness. Hear those words. But of course, we think people down the other end over there, they're mentally ill and I'm normal. Well, Buddha happens to be saying, honey child, we are all mentally ill. It's just a question of degree. So what are the names of the mental illnesses for the Buddha? Well, they're not called OCD and ADHD and bipolar and all the Greek names. They are simply called the 3 essential ones. Ego grasping, maripa, ignorance is the root affliction, the root delusion, the root nonsense, the root misconception that believes deep in the bones of our being so primordially that we don't even notice it, believes totally in a real, concrete, solid, separate, set in stone me. It's so primordial, it's basically at the level of assumption. And so that's why we have to get subtle level of mind and concentration to even begin to see it, you know, because it's so primordial, meaning it's ancient, meaning we don't just wake up in this life as a blank slate, which is the Western view, or we don't come programmed with mummy and daddy's, you know, states of mind. That's a bizarre, I mean, the more you learn Buddhist psychology and the Buddhist view of karma, the more weird it is to think that someone can give you a mind. This is so peculiar, you can't believe it, you know, because the Buddhist view is totally subjective. It's totally personal. You own everything in your mind. It's your mind. It's your anger. It's your love. It's your psychosis. It's your compassion. And you brought it with you. This is so fundamental to the Buddhist view of practice and the entire path. And to get used to this is a huge step to take, you know, but really hard for us because we love to blame everybody else. You understand? So we function at we've got the sensory and we have the mental, and the level of mental we only function at is the grossest level, and that's called conceptuality. So there's still levels of conceptuality, of course. So it's lots of those thoughts like about music and math, these very brilliant conceptual thoughts, they're just conceptual thoughts about how things exist, and there's nothing wrong with those. You know, you learn mathematics, they're valid cognitions because there's a whole system called math. You learn those concepts, you prove them to be true, they're called valid cognitions, they're fine. But you've got the emotional ones, and they're the ones the Buddha focuses on at this point in the Lam Rim. He focuses on the neurotic ones, the emotional ones. So these ones are the ones, and this is the point of why are they emotional? Because we've practiced them for so long. That includes love and compassion. So how come Harry was able effortlessly to have such compassion for 4 strangers, not his children? It was because he's practiced it. He's practiced it to the point where it's now natural. So a person who plays the piano, you see them play beautifully, it doesn't come from the sky. You know they've practiced it for a long time. Isn't it? It was obvious. So if you see in your mind, you get angry easily, it's because you've practiced it in the past. I mean, it's so simple, the explanation. We say, why am I angry? And of course, you'll get your mother did this and your father did that and the person 22 years ago did this to you. Yeah, they might have. That's not the reason you're angry. It's because you've done it before, babe. That's all. Well, why did I do it before? Because you've done it before. And why did I do it before? Because you've done it before and you never get the first moment. Anger is a habit. It's not even complicated, you know, it's a habit. All these neuroses, and so is love and compassion. So if as a little boy, you run to fishing and immediately fall in love with fishing and start killing the fish, you can deduce you've done it before. If you're another little child who, like my friend Daichem, when her little boy was 3 years old and she's taking the lice out of his head, and he's crying with compassion for the lice. No one taught him. The fisherman's mummy didn't teach him yet. They came with these tendencies. He's crying in compassion for the lice. Mummy, mummy, leave them alone. It's their home, you know. And he's never killed a living being in this life because he's practiced compassion, practiced non-killing. This is the simple concept of karma. I mean, I think psychologically, it's about the best explanation you can find. Why one child wants to kill somebody and why one child wants to be helpful. It's not just random.
Yeah.
You can't blame Hitler's mother for Hitler. I'm sorry. You understand? It just doesn't work, you know? So it's not a difficult concept, even theoretically. So all our mind is full of concepts. Anger and compassion and love at the level we function at the moment are all rooted in, underpinned by being conceptual thoughts. But but when you practice and practice and practice them, that's when they become emotional. And what I mean by that is when the body's involved. Can you hear me? When you see a person who's angry, what you're seeing is a child shouting and yelling and screaming. Is she's angry, you'll say. Well, what are you seeing? You're seeing a body flailing. You're seeing voice shouting, eyes as wide as saucers, spit coming out the mouth, and coming out the mouth completely irrational, absurd words. And what are words but thoughts? Do you hear my point? How dare you do that to me? I hate you. What is that but a thought? And a thought is another word for a concept. Are you hearing me, people? Anger is conceptual, but it comes along with the emotion because you've practiced it. The same with love. If you really practice love, you will have incredible affection and you'll be crying with compassion for sentient beings because you've practiced it. It's not cosmic or unusual. So, but finally, we live at this very gross level of conceptuality, and then Buddha focuses in the middle scope not on the concept of theories about music and math. That's not his expertise. They are concepts and they are valid. Some of them. If you say 1 + 1 is 3, that's not a valid concept. But within the math, idea, 1 + 1 is a valid. 1 + 1 is 2 is a valid concept. But here we're talking the emotional ones because they're the problem. They cause suffering. So let's look at those and why do they cause suffering? And why, crucially, are they misconceptions? This is the point. Why are they called misconceptions? Well, okay, first you start with a definition. If you say 1 + 1 is 2, that is a concept, it's a thought, and then it has to have a valid basis. Any thought, the way they talk about the mind, any thought you have, it's a valid thought, not in a sense of being, you won the lottery, you're correct, you're a good girl, but literally being correct, actual truth. If 1 + 1 is 2, how do you prove it? Well, it's within the dependent arising of the concept of a world of mathematics, and the people have come up with these concepts, and then you look and you can prove it. 1 + 1 is 2. So a valid concept in general in Buddhism is a thought that's in sync with the thing that you're talking about. So if you say that is a rose, you have to establish what we're talking about here. So we have to first know the English language, obviously. We have to know what that means, is a rose. And once we all agree that thing there, and you define what a rose is, you define the words, you say there's a rose, we all remember it because we've learned, that is a rose, you will say. So if I say I have a vase of roses, you don't just believe me, you've got to look in that direction and you'll go there, you'll identify that it's a rose, you'll identify it's a vase, you'll identify it's more than one. So you'll go tick the box, she just spoke the truth. Isn't it reasonable? Now, isn't that nice if we can all speak the truth? Now look at the world. There's hardly a word that comes out of the internet that's valid. It's just vomit pouring forth from people's deluded minds. Literally, we live in conspiracy theories every day. But we do it even in normal world, she's horrible, she did this, and you believe it's true. You believe what you're seeing. If you're colorblind, you say that's blue, but that's not true. Valid within the thing of roses and colors, that is not blue. There's no absolute blue. There's no absolute rose. There's no absolute red. Within the dependent arising of the world of convention, that is a pink rose or whatever color it is. So we've got to establish truth. And that really is the point for the Buddha. The whole deal is he is saying, we suffer because we have misconceptions. That is honestly the truth. That's how he's summarizing everything. We suffer because our mind is driven by misconceptions. So the job of being a Buddhist is to gradually identify the misconceptions and argue with them, get to remove them from the mind by seeing the truth. So the knowing of truth is what annihilates the misconceptions. And eventually you have the misconceptions gone completely and you now are a Buddha. Are you communicating? That's a way of saying it, So we have to get to see why first category of the states of mind are the neurotic ones, the deluded ones, all the voices of ego. They are in their nature self-centered, in their nature painful, and in their nature misconceptions. So they're causing us to live in la land. They cause us to not be in touch with how things exist, quite literally. Then the second lot are valid concepts conventionally. They are called the virtuous states of mind. They are also concepts. They also can be practiced. They're also emotional, but they're virtuous, they're positive. But why are they valid is the crucial question. Because they're in sync with dependent arising. And dependent arising is the way the universe exists. It's reality. Buddha says, if you're Christian, reality is what God made, isn't it? This here has got nothing to do with anybody making anything. That's why the concept of science is a really good one. You know, we say botany. Well, a botanist is a clever human being who has observed the natural law of growing things on this planet. Nobody made the growing things. Of course, if you're a Muslim, you say the world is so amazing, there must be an architect, and that's called God. Not here. It's just a natural law. There are things growing. Now, they've been growing since beginningless time, haven't they? Botanists don't make things grow. But a botanist is a clever person who, with their intelligence, has observed growing things and has articulated what they see, codified it as a series of laws, and then presented it. Now, that's what natural law means. Do you understand me? And that is what Buddha is talking about. He has observed minds. He has observed at a subtle level, obviously. You know, he's observed minds. He's observed the subtle level of the reality. So he's coming up with what he has observed with his mind. This is reality. So he says karma is what is real. It exists. He's not saying this is my truth and it's dogma and you better believe it, baby. That he is not saying. And as the Dalai Lama says, if you can prove Buddha's wrong, then you must reject him. This is the scientific view. You know? What else would it be? Buddha's talking about what is real, how things are, how things exist. He says we're not, and why we suffer, he says, is because we're not in touch with how things exist at whatever degree, you know. And what the cause of not being in touch with the reality is these misconceptions, these neuroses. And because they're emotional and because they're practiced from countless lifetimes, they are so primordial within us that we don't even know we have a misconception. That's the tragedy. Bad enough, as Lama Zopa says, we're caught up in the delusions, in the misconceptions, but we believe they are true. This is the tragedy. Because in other words, it's sort of like you've had a $50 note, and for so long, you've believed it is 500. Now it actually looks like 500. Do you understand my point? So not only do you, and this is why attachment causes dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction is the key energy of attachment. Attachment is multifaceted, okay? The energy of it, the most primordial, is dissatisfaction. This aching, painful feeling of I do not have enough. No matter what I get, it is not enough. No matter what I achieve, it is not enough. No matter how much you tell me you love me, it is not enough. It's the default assumption of attachment. It is the pain of attachment. Now, why is that a function of attachment? Because we've practiced. If you've practiced believing that 50 is 500 for so long, the $50 note, then of course when you see the note, you get excited, and this is a function of attachment. You see you think of the thing, and then you get excited. You anticipate it. You anticipate what you're going to get for it, and you build up this big story, which is exactly what attachment does. You look forward. You're waiting. You can't wait. You go to spend 500, and all you get is $50 worth. So what do you think the consequence will be? Bitter disappointment, won't it? You'll be disappointed, right? Well, that happens every time you follow attachment. You think the cake will make you happy. You think the next job will make you happy. You think the boyfriend will make you happy. You think the next thought will make you happy. You think the next meal will make you happy. Every next second, every time he's anticipating, waiting, dissatisfied. So you've got to find something more. And when I get that, I'll get happy. And then you get disappointed because attachment cannot be satisfied because it is a lie. It's a misconception. It is an exaggeration of the deliciousness of the object, and it exaggerates the power of that object to give me satisfaction. So you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So from countless lives of practicing that, you come into this life with deep distress of never having enough, never feeling enough, bitterly disappointed all the time. And then you go get more cake again, and all you get, like my mother used to say, is the more you get, the more you want. This is exactly the pain of attachment. And we are driven by it, not just for cakes and dogs and toilets, not toilets, whatever you want, but just driven every second. It's just the motor that propels sentient beings from second to second, you know. And there are grosser levels of it and subtle levels of it, obviously. So okay, how is it a misconception then? How do you define it? You have to define what it is. So attachment is a conceptual thought that exaggerates the deliciousness of something. That's the definition of attachment. Then the third poison is the aversion or anger. There's ignorance, the root delusion. We're forgetting this one here. We're going to go to attachment that gives rise to, if you're positing a separate, concrete, real, solid, set in stone me, then its nature, because it doesn't exist like that, already it's stressful. So then because it's a feeling of being bereft, then you have this emotional hunger for something out there, the first level, the objects of the senses, that you completely believe that when I get that, I'll get satisfied. It'll fill up the gaping hole. This is primordial. This is instinctive, you know, instinctive. So when attachment doesn't get what it wants, which is 1,000 times a day, we have a bunch of mini disappointments. It builds up. That is what aversion is. Aversion is the bare bones state of mind that is the result when attachment is thwarted or doesn't get what it wants. So aversion is like a moment of disappointment. So almost when the more you understand attachment and aversion, the more we're going to see almost like they're same, you know. So the violent level of aversion is anger, screaming and shouting and having a complete panic attack because you didn't get what you wanted. Milder levels are irritation, annoyed, upset, frustrated. They're all called, they're mild anger. They're moments of disappointment, moments of upset attachment, moments when the attachment didn't get what it wanted. You stub your toe, an unhappy feeling comes, you're upset. You know, hubby slurps his coffee, you get upset. The red light, you get upset. The coffee's the wrong taste, you get upset. We don't think that's a problem, but that's an example of anger, and it builds up. You know, and if you're really not a volatile person, a build-up of disappointments throughout the day and then day after day ends up becoming primordial depression. You just can't work, you can't get out of bed, you're inert because everything stays in the mind and builds up, you know, but we don't pay attention. This is our biggest tragedy in our culture. We wait till all the wheels fall off before we go to the mechanic in our culture. If you go to your therapist when you get annoyed because your hubby slurps his coffee, you go to your therapist, please, will you help me? Give me some methods. Would you mind? Give me some preventative methods. I got annoyed today. She will laugh at you and tell you to go home and wait till you want to kill him. You understand me? So that's the tragedy, how we think of therapy in our culture. You go when everything's damaged.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simply, literally like going to the mechanic. You 100 miles an hour on the freeway and you notice your wheels are falling off. Oh, what'll I do? Well, it's damage control is the best because you didn't bother checking them when they were wobbling. So we understand maintenance. I say this as if it's a joke, but it's deadly serious. We understand maintenance when it comes to our body, our houses, our cars, our possessions. Wheels never fall off freeways. I mean, you go to Los Angeles, like the third world, you see junk and rubbish and broken tires and all God knows what on the freeways, but you do not see cars with their wheels falling off because we go to the mechanic. Do you get my point? But we don't do it emotionally. That's the reason why we're so distressed in the West, because we wait till it's too late. And then we think it's our nature. And then we think it's all just the brain anyway, and it's not my fault. And then we think it's everybody else's fault and God's fault and mummy's fault. And we've got all these wrong views. And no wonder we're crazy, you know. Do you understand me? Do you understand me? So even forget nirvana, forget bodhicitta, forget Buddhahood. Even if we could use Buddhist techniques just to give ourselves maintenance. It's called maintenance so that you don't lose the plot. When you practice when the slurping of the coffee comes, you practice when you stub your toe. Don't wait till your hubby to kill you before you start working on your mind. So misconception is the fundamental problem of the neuroses, the affliction. So the thing is, when you study the Lam Rim, in the Lam Rim, the main focus they put is on seeing the disturbing character of attachment and anger and jealousy. They don't go into the more subtle one of their being delusional. But this is a powerful point, is the real reason why they are disturbing, why they cause suffering, because we've built up these stories all based on attachment, expectation, believing in something, believing in the happiness of the cake will bring, believing that in the boyfriend, believing in the objects of the senses, believing in all these endless expectations. Expectation is attachment, possessiveness is attachment, emotional hunger is attachment, control freak is attachment, neediness is attachment, dissatisfaction is attachment. And we give all these different names in the West. OCD is, obsessive mind, attachment, ADHD, uncontrolled, unconcentrated. It all comes down to attachment energy. So learning that gives you this clue into the way your mind works. And this has got nothing. See, when we study psychology in the West, we include learning all about the body as well. And we include learning all about what mothers do and fathers do and the external things, which we think are the main cause of these emotions. But when you study the mind in Buddhism, you are studying only the mind. It's so utterly precise. It's so clear, so precise. Do you understand me? It's incredibly fascinating. And you have that knowledge, so then slowly, by looking at your own mind, you are able to hear the attachment thoughts. You can hear the angry thoughts before they become emotional. And it's then that you can work on them and change them and argue with them and be your own therapist. But if it's full-blown screaming, it is too late to change. The best you can do is damage control. Are we communicating? But the key point here is to show how these emotional afflictions are rooted in being misconceptions, and that's why they're painful. If you expect $500 worth from 50, of course you're going to be disappointed. But you're so addicted to believing it is 500 that you try again tomorrow, and you don't learn your lesson. If we learned our lesson the first time we realized cake wasn't what we thought it was, we would already become a Buddha by then. But the habit is so primordial. We're just addicted to believing the objects of the senses will make us happy. It's just habit, that's all. So we should have compassion for ourselves and have humility and patience, because they're primordially deep misconceptions. And as Lama Yeshe says, I can tell you about attachment for a whole year. We'll never begin to understand it until we start deep work internally, We've got to first have the words, though, to identify. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is what I think a lot of misconception about meditation and mindfulness, all that kind of business comes into the West, that, we think about mindfulness as sort of a way to make all the thoughts go away or to make you calmer or something. But actually, in the beginning stages of this type of meditation, you're merely training your mind to stay focused. You're not going to be focused, you're training yourself. And the immediate benefit of watching your breath for 5 minutes isn't that you're going to get concentration. You won't. You're training yourself. You're training yourself to keep focused on the breath. But you've got to, then as soon as you wander off, you grab your bit of mindfulness. Mindfulness is not some hippy-trippy kind of experience. Mindfulness is one of the many parts of the mind. And its job is to help you stay. It's really like not forgetfulness. It's the ability to not forget what you're doing second by second by second. You need it to make a cake, you need it to murder somebody, and you need it to meditate. Do you hear my point? It's not a holy thing at all. And this brings us, by the way, to the third category. But okay, the second category, go back. How come love and compassion are not misconceptions? This is a really good point. Mm-hmm. The misconception is attachment that distorts and exaggerates the delusions of something. It's coming from emotional hunger. It's coming from an assumption I'm not enough. So then it exaggerates. So the degree of your low self-esteem, which is dissatisfaction, is the degree of the emotional hunger and the degree of the fantasy that you dump on the cake or the boy or whatever it is. And then therefore the degree to which you are bitterly disappointed when you don't get what attachment thought it would. You understand me? Mm-hmm. They're misconceptions. They're painful, aching, painful, distressing states of mind. Then you've got the virtuous states of mind, and they're our saving grace. And they're called patience and kindness and love and empathy and compassion. We know the words. They are also conceptual at the level we function at the moment. So what is compassion? The definition of compassion, it starts with, it is a thought that is expressed as, may you not suffer. What is love? May you be happy. You start with that, and then you build it up. So Harry went off to meditation after, before 20 years, apart from generally liking people, but he's practicing developing these concepts and then putting meat on the bones of them and developing genuine love and genuine compassion based on all his practice. So he sees 4 strangers and without a second thought is happy to give his life better for them because he has compassion. You can't have that overnight. But it starts as a conception, and you build it up with emotion. Same with anger, same with love, and same with attachment, same. But one is virtuous. And why is it virtuous and why is it valid? Again, I'll say it. Because it's rooted in dependent arising. And dependent arising is the reality of the world. It's how things exist. Things exist interdependently. And if everything's working smoothly, in other words, you understand yourself, if all the bits and pieces of my computer are working nicely, the computer functions. So if a bunch of people together are all working nicely, it's because the virtues are prevailing, aren't they? But if delusions and anger and jealousy and attachment are prevailing, you have a nightmare. You walk into a room, you can cut the energy with a knife. We say that because delusions are rampant and you're not even opening your mouth. That's the mind. So if all the bits of, a group of people, even two people is a group, okay? And if both are deluded, then everything is jagged, isn't it? Nothing works. You're not in sync with dependent arising because each of you is thinking of I, and you're going to crash into each other. But if 2 people are together and love is prevailing over attachment, it will work beautifully. Everything will work smoothly. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Dependent arising is all the bits and pieces working nicely together. Honestly, it's a simple way of putting it. So love and compassion are valid because they're related to other. There's me and other. Attachment is me and all these others out there. How damn them, damn those others. But love and compassion is me and others and we're together. Can you hear me? Simple way of talking. So they're valid concepts. They're valid because they're in sync with reality. And they don't cause suffering. They only cause happiness to me. And when I act upon them, they cause others happiness as well. Are we communicating? I can only say it like this because I've studied low rig like 40 years ago. I don't remember most of the details, but based on that, I can now say this. You get my point? You understand me? I've forgotten all the details. This is fundamental, this one. Fundamental to the Buddhist view of the mind. Now, what's the third category? This is interesting. They're called neutral, which is so confusing. Usually the first lot are called negative or non-virtuous. And we don't like that in the West. That sounds so rude, judgmental. The second lot are called virtues or positive. And they're very specific meaning, like I've described. Now, the third lot, they call them neutral, which makes as if it sounds like they're not important. But I'd rather call them the mechanics of the mind. There's a really good way to put it, I think. So these are the states of mind that in other words, these enable us to function. So if you're killing somebody, you need good concentration, don't you? You need really good mindfulness. You've got to be keeping on track what you're doing moment by moment and not forgetting. Oh, what was I doing? Oh, killing somebody. I forgot. It's too late. They've gone, You've got to have mindfulness, you've got to have concentration, you've got to have discrimination, which is happening every second. And it's the ability to discriminate between this and that. Well, if you kill Mary instead of Fred, you'll be in trouble. You've got to have discrimination and know who you're killing. You've got to have concentration. You've got to have mindfulness. Do you hear my point here? They are neither negative nor positive. They're not negative. They're not virtuous. They're valid cognitions. They're just valid. They're how they are. But they're not in their nature virtue. So the only reason mindfulness or concentration become virtuous is if they're motivated by a virtue. That's why mindfulness meditation in itself, as Lama Zopa says, thieves need mindfulness. It is not a virtuous activity, watching your bearing or breath. Watching your breath is not in its nature a virtuous activity. It is a boring, stupid activity. Monkeys need it. But if it's based on compassion and wisdom or renunciation, then it becomes valid. Then it becomes virtuous. Are you understanding my point? So there's negative, positive, and these, what I'd call, the mechanics. Makes sense, Okay, so questions now, please, about that. No questions. Okay, good. That means you almost, you can tell me what all about it. You tell me back to me what I just said, can you? No. Okay. Yes, go.
Is the neutral state of mind that you were just referring to what you would call indifference?
Not in this sense. No, not in this. Not in the description of these different states of mind. Not like that at all. Neutral here means neither the negative and neurotic nor virtuous. That's what it means, actually. But it's an odd way. The only way to understand that is by understanding what virtue and non-virtue mean. Then we'll know that it's not either of those. It's got, in other words, it's got no character of being good or bad. Put it that way. Concentration is just concentration. It's not good or bad, because a murderer concentrates, it can't be good because you're murdering. So you've got to add the concentration to what you're doing with it, which makes it bad. But if you're concentrating on how to help people, then it becomes good. So it's got no virtue or non-virtuous character in itself, but combined with virtue or non-virtue becomes that. It causes you to do that. Do you see my point? But the neutral state of mind, that could be in another context, could be indifference, yes. So if you're talking in the compassion point of view of having friend, enemy, and stranger. So friend is the object of attachment, enemy is the object of aversion, and stranger is the object of indifference. You could say they're neutral, couldn't care, indifferent, don't care. In that sense, you could say. Do you understand my point?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay. Okay. What else? Questions? Any questions, people? Sweethearts? Nothing there? Okay. So now
Venerable
where?
Lynn,
Good, darling, good, Lynn.
I bought those flowers and the label on those flowers was ranunculus.
Oh, it's not of rose, is it?
That's
Oh, so
right.
sorry. What's it called?
Ranunculus?
Ranunculus? So sorry, I just did an invalid cognition. It's a ranunculus. I know, I wouldn't have known. I mean, I can see these black things in the middle. It's not like a rose,
Yeah,
is it?
that's right.
Okay, a ranunculus. Thank you. We just had a valid cognition. Thank you very much, Lynn. I'm so happy. Okay, so the job here, the job in the first level of practice, you mind your own business, you keep your nose out of other people's lives, you control your body, and you control your speech. That is really the main emphasis in the first stage of practice. No discussion about your mind yet. Just control your body, control your speech. Protect yourself from harming others because you don't want future suffering. That's the point. It's like you're going to watch like a hawk the labels on the sugar and the cigarettes, and you avoid them at all costs because you do not want suffering. That's the approach in the first level. It's all about behavior. Vows are about behavior, not about the mind. Already, if the world had good behavior, think about it. We'd be living in a blissful place and nobody would fight. So the behavior is what does the harm. Of course, it comes from the mind. But you've got to control the servants of the mind first. It's so clear, you know. And even as Buddhists, we don't even think about this. Oh, I want to meditate. See, then you meditate, then you vomit out your mouth 2 minutes later because you haven't worked on controlling your mind. So controlling your body and speech is itself specific practices. And that's the first level. That's the first level. Control your body, control your speech, discipline. It's a tremendously powerful practice and already a tremendously effective practice that will help you calm down. If you calm the servants of your anger, it helps your anger calm down. It's like it's incidental, isn't it? Now you get to now you get into the anger itself now in the second level of practice. Because you've begun to harness the crazy delusions, the servants of the delusions, you know. Do you understand me? So I just mentioned the 3 poisons. There's so many negative states of mind. But in general, the characteristic that the neuroses share is they exaggerate. They're conceptual thoughts that exaggerate. That's why they're misconceptions. So what is pride? Now, nobody likes to confess to pride in our culture, do we? But I'm sorry to tell you, it's the flip side of low self-esteem. Everybody confesses to low self-esteem, right? You know why we have low self-esteem? Because we have pride. This is very embarrassing to admit to. We don't want to know about it. So let's look at that. So low self-esteem. Okay, look at a person you think of. We all know someone who's arrogant. Don't worry about yourself. Think of someone you know who's arrogant. Just think of someone else. That person, what pride is or arrogance, it is a conceptual thought that over-exaggerates your importance, basically. Do you understand me? Which means you're comparing with other people. So we can see an arrogant person, and the person is really obviously arrogant. They're kind of like, got a cock, isn't it? Sort of walking around all important. You can tell by looking. Now look at that person. They're actually very fragile. So they've got this self-conscious feeling they're more important. And they're very fragile because as soon as that person meets a person who is better than them, what do you think is going to happen? They'll deflate And then they'll go to the other extreme and think, oh, I'm nothing, I'm nobody. This person's better than me, isn't it? But you would only have low self-esteem, in other words, if you've got pride, because it's really the same delusion. So we love to confess to low self-esteem as if somehow poor me, but we would not have it if we did not have pride. This is very hard to see. But if we do look, it's an eye-opener, I tell you. Are we communicating here?
Yeah.
And pride, I think, is one of the main delusions of the modern world. And why would we have it? Because we're smarty pants and we're richer than the rest of the world, and we just identify with being the better people. That's why if you're in the right race, you know, in a culture, if you're in the right race, you're going to be proud. Of course you will be. Oh, we don't think we are. Are you seeing what I'm saying, people? So when I get my air tickets, often I get tickets, I get business class sometimes. I'm just telling you. And, you know, business class people get first treatment. You get in the front, you get out first, you get in first, you call Miss Courtin, they see my Qantas number. I've got all these millions of miles. Sometimes I get business class, and you can't help it. Oh, I'm important. You just see it automatically. You puff yourself up. You can't help it. Are you understanding me? You understand me? It's embarrassing to admit, but it's right there. Yeah, I'm in the first row. I say, group 1, that's me. I'm in the front row waiting. I have to get in first. I never sit and wait. I'm in the first row with my bag ready to go. Do you understand me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's embarrassing, but it's there. That's called pride. Now, of course, the job is, if I've got a business class seat and to be in the front row, try not to make it pride. Do you understand? That's difficult. I'm confessing, okay? And then the group 7 people, oh, look at the group 7 people, group 9, group 9, you know. I go, oh my God, who's group 9? Way back there.
They're lazy. They're lazy.
So really, it's a painful one to hear, this one, but it is common in our culture. I mean, when you go to, it's very funny, when you go to Bodo or somewhere where all the Tibetans are, right? I'm not saying Tibetans are holy any more than us, but they've got a certain cultural way of being. And you see all the grandmas and the grandpas with their long hair and their long dresses and their big fat malas. And I have to demonstrate, they kind of walk around the steeple like this. Even though I 40, like this. We walk around like this. Standing up straight. Do you understand me? Because you can't just shuffle, look like an old lady. You understand? That's called pride. It's called pride, people. It's called pride. It's very simple. Which doesn't mean if you flip it over, I've got to look like a creep. No. Have divine pride. That's in Tantra. That's so beautiful, you know. That's our trouble when Lama would teach us all these things. We think, oh, I'm a creep. I'm no good. I have no pride. I shouldn't have pride. That means I should think I'm a creep. No, that's delusional. That's delusional. So divine, it's a beautiful phrase. In Tantra, they talk about developing divine pride. That means be the deity, think you are Tara, but to be mixed with wisdom and mixed with compassion and mixed with humility. Do you understand me? That's possible. That's what's lovely about Tantra. I mean, I remember, okay, I think about the Dalai Lama, you know, when particularly this time I mentioned in the 80s, Lama Yeshe invited His Holiness, along with other people, to all the different centres, various places. In Europe, he's one of the benefactors who invited. And so Lama, being so kind and wonderful, appointed 10 of us Western people with students, one was Indonesian, to be security guards for His Holiness. I mean, he appointed me. I thought I'd won the lottery. I couldn't believe I was such a good girl. I was going to be one of the Dalai Lama's bodyguards. I was amazed and delighted. I couldn't believe it, you know. So there were 5 women and 5 men. And this is Lama, who's so kind, you know. We had to wear uniforms. I was a nun, but he made us wear uniforms. So Paula DeVis went up to Hong Kong and got us new green plaid skirts and maroon and yellow blouses and maroon jackets. We had to look like lay people. So I went first into Milan, and my friend we went shopping, and I got these knee-high maroon boots, and I decided I'd wear lipstick. So I thought, well, you've got to look like a lady. I was supposed to look like a lady, you know, even though I was a nun, had hair. And Lama Yeshe would always look at me and laugh and say, I think I like you better like that, he'd say. Anyway, we spent about 6 weeks, 2 months, traveling around Italy and France and Spain with His Holiness. I can't describe how amazing it was when you saw up close His Holiness, how he worked with people, you know. He was incredibly charismatic. Everybody absolutely adored him. But when you think, okay, when you think of a Buddha, you think of a person who's humble, no pride, no anger, no attachment, no jealousy. And we think in ordinary Western terms, you try to imagine a person like that, and you just think of it as a crummy, weird person walking around looking like nothing, you know, because we think they are so important, those qualities. We can't visualize a person who doesn't have those. So when you see him, you see a charismatic person, a powerful person, a bossy person. He would come into press conferences. It was so amazing. He'd come into press conferences, and within 3 minutes, he's bossing everyone around. He managed the whole thing. He didn't sit there like you think a humble person, not going to do what you like with me. No, he ran the show. So then you can see as an example, but at the same time, you'd see everybody adored him. He was incredibly kind to every person. So then you can see there's a person who can be charismatic and big and proud, but be humble. And so that really is an eye-opener to know that, you know. And this, all of this is about learning to distinguish between the delusions and the virtues. They've got completely different characteristics. So you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's why Lama made us do Tara. Because if you just sort of hear the first level, I've got to have no pride, no attachment, no jealousy, no anger, you end up becoming a nothing person. We can't even understand what it means because we can't distinguish between the virtues and the delusions. You see my point? So he made us do Tara to identify with being a beautiful person. So it's all completely possible. Divine pride is a beautiful phrase, you know, but it means with no delusions. It means, in other words, if you've got no delusions, even relatively speaking, you've got less delusions, you would have incredible self-confidence. You'd be happy with who you are, and you'd project this image of being a marvelous person, but not self-consciously. You see my point? Delusions are utterly self-conscious. Virtues are very natural. So a person who's got less attachment, less anger, less jealousy, less pride will be delightful and joyful and loving and kind and very content, very self-confident. Do you understand that? We have to understand this, you know? So I had to see His Holiness like that. It was amazing to see. And how people just adored him. And he was so naturally kind to everybody, but in a very powerful way, you know? Not in a weak, silly way, like we imagine. Utterly unself-conscious. It was very fascinating. So virtues are unself-conscious. Delusions are totally self-conscious. We're totally involved in ourselves, you know. Do you understand? This is what's so important. This way of dividing the different states of mind is so helpful in the Buddhist approach. It's so actually gives you incredible insight into yourself, you know. Are we communicating here? That's the mind. Now we go to the compassion, third one. So now all this work of controlling your body, controlling your speech, controlling your mind, what do you think the consequences of this are? Is a happy person. Not, oh, I'm got nothing and nobody and renounced everything. Do you understand? That's how we think about it. You sort of chuck the baby out with the bathwater. No. You become fulfilled, content, joyful, not even focusing on being kind yet. But if you've got less neuroses, you've got more empathy already without even focusing on it. You're more fulfilled. You're more content in yourself. You don't have low self-esteem. You don't have arrogance. You don't have attachment. You don't have emotional hunger. You're not trying to control people. You're not having possessiveness. You've not even got high realizations yet. You've got some semblance of success at this level. You are already a nice, content, easygoing person. Now, the thing is, when you look at Tantra, and I find this helpful, you see all the deities. Basically, they're different models of different personalities. You've got the big, loud, noisy deities, and you've got the little quiet, soft ones. Do you understand my point? So there are 4 kinds. There's peaceful ones. There are wrathful ones. There are controlling ones, which are the manifestation of, this is where you can utilize delusion. The simple sense is, peaceful one is a person who's peaceful and sweet and uses kind methods to help people. And they're just lovely people, like Harry. Looks like just friendly, nice fellow, you know. Now, there are other ones for the tough-minded sentient beings who can't be subdued by the peaceful deities, then they manifest in a wrathful way. So they're the deities that are loud and big and noisy and can shout at you and make you nervous. Do you understand me? That's the wrathful deities, but both are coming from compassion and kindness, but they're different shapes and sizes. So the ones who are wrathful, the deities, well, Yamantaka, if you met Yamantaka in human form, he would scare the life out of you. Now, Tara has got she's meant to be actually some aspect of slightly wrathful. She's got eyes slightly wide open, not peaceful. You'd be scared of her if you met her, okay? But she's kind and loving and gets things done. That's Tara's energy. And we need that badly. But Chenrezig is the peaceful one, sweet and soft and loving and, you know, lovey-dovey. Tara's peaceful because some aspect as well. We need that's action energy, you know. But the really wrathful ones, like Yamantaka, it really would be very scary to meet a human being in that form. They'd use wrathful methods to help you. Do you understand? But it's all coming from compassion. This is the whole point about the tantric path. It's in that simple sense that you're using the delusion. Do you understand my point? You're showing the aspect of anger. You're showing the aspect of being sweet and peaceful. They're all the same in their nature, but you dress up and show different ways. That's in the most simple way how you're using delusions to help others. Do you understand my point here? That's a really vivid way to say it, easy way to say it. And we understand it's called tough love. Your mother, 4 times it says no more chocolate and you haven't listened. No more chocolate. You go to your room. Now, of course, you think Mummy's angry. She's not. She's acting angry for your benefit. We really understand it. That's the wrathful one. Now, the third one, controlling or powerful, that's transforming attachment energy. So the wrathful deities they're transforming attachment and they will seduce you. Wrathful ones will calm you down. Peaceful ones will just make you happy, and the controlling ones will seduce you and hook you. And so that do you understand me? So many of the deities are the controlling, like that kind. That's transforming attachment energy. Do you understand me? Do you understand that part? Do you understand that? So they'd be utilizing attachment energy just to seduce you, to make you like them. Then they'll do what you want to help sentient beings. You know. So this is literally these 4 ways that deities manifest. The fourth one is increasing.
Yeah,
These are different ways that the Buddhas, the holy beings, manifest, utilizing delusions, showing the aspect of a delusion in order to help sentient beings. Now, that is not on the first level. The first level, you go nowhere near. You calm those parts of yourself down. In the next scope, you look at your mind and you lessen those. Then the third one, you cultivate compassion and sweetness. And now you can start to actually, on the tantric level, you're so under control with all your mind, you can act like an angry person. You can act like an attached person. You understand me? But it's not. It's acting. That's how tantra. That's tantra. Do you understand my point? That we understand, you know. So you got to, you don't wait till you're a high being. You can be this even now with friends and people. But you can't misuse these things. You understand? So the only person who can use anger is the person who's given it up. The only person who can use attachment is the person who's given it up. That's the point. Do you understand? The only person who can use poison as medicine who understands the poison. Do you understand? I think we understand this conceptually. But you can't play with this. You can't pretend, you know. It's got to be genuine. That's the energy of all the deities in one of those 4 categories. That's it. And some of the controlling ones also have a wrathful aspect, you know, but their main energy is controlling. And controlling means literally like control freak. But they're virtuous control freaks. That's literally what I'm saying. Literally, that's what they are. So in the West, that sounds very shocking. We don't trust that, you know. That's why you hear all these lovely stories. I always tell the story of my mother when she met Lama Yeshe. My mother, I love my mother. I adore my mother. She was the dearest mother. She had 7 babies and she had worked. I know we were in her mind as the day she died. I know that. And she had all the worries and dramas of her crazy children, her crazy daughters and her son. She had a son at the end. Every time I talk to people, they never know I had a brother. The first 6 are girls. Actually, the first 7 were girls. And poor Tony came at the end, you know. Some can't have these 6 bossy sisters. You know, and people say, I didn't know you had a brother, they say. And I'm sorry, it's true. Or some of my sisters, you know. Anyway. But my darling mother, she was very proud. And she had pride, but she also was a really good mother. She cared for her children. She was amazing. And she was a musician, very talented. And she had people, but she was one of those people who never told anybody else her problems. Everybody came to her with their problems. And she loved helping people. She was amazing. So she wanted to be, she was freaked out about poor me, you know. I mean, her daughter, Robina. She was my music guru. All my other sisters and my brother would go to the football with my father. But I couldn't stand all the shouting and yelling, which sounds odd because I shout and yell, you know. But I mean, my mother saw some talent in me as a singer, so she was a classical singer, so she taught me singing. So I'd stay home on Saturdays and we'd sing together. I'd learn opera, and I loved it. I just loved it. I loved it. I loved it. Anyway, what am I saying? So she thought I had all this talent. So then at some point, I remember I gave up God. I gave up when I was 19. I ran away from home. So I fell in love with a married man. And I tried to seduce him, and I was so shocked that I did seduce him, but I was too scared to sleep with him, so I ran away. I thought I've got to go to somewhere else and be a good girl, you know. So I ran away overnight, borrowed £20 from somebody, 1964, and ran away to Adelaide. Adelaide's a very quiet city. I don't know why I didn't run away to Sydney, which is more exciting. I must have been scared of Sydney, I think. But I ran away to Adelaide for 6 months. My poor mother was so devastated. And while I was there, I gave up God, you see. So she came and she was in tears, begging me to go back to Mass, you know. But she knew she'd lost me. Anyway, she forgave me overnight. She forgave me. Next day, she forgave me. Then I sort of came back home and started doing my singing again. And she sent me off to London to become a singer. And then when I was there, I gave up wanting to be a singer and I became a hippie. So then she kind of cried, you know, I was into drugs and having sex with boys. She came over to London, I was sleeping with all these boys and you know, my poor mother, she was so tolerant. I went to Russia with her one time, 1969, went on the train to Russia and I was this hippie. I even seduced the boy in the next cabin. My mother's there and I seduced the boy in the next cabin, you know. I mean, I was so wicked. My mother, then the boy gave me up in Moscow and she said I was in tears. My mother loved me and forgave me. And then I became this kind of radical lefty, like a communist, and she was so upset, but she forgave me again. Then I became a radical feminist, and she got nervous. Then I became a radical lesbian feminist, and she cried. But the next day she forgave me as if nothing had happened. Then I became a Buddhist, and she really cried. And then she forgave me next day. I mean, she was incredible, my mother. She just never stopped forgiving me. And I never tried to make my mother happy. I did the opposite. I always ran off and did exactly what I wanted, you know. And my mother just forgave me every time. She just was so kind, my mother. So anyway, I became a nun this time, you know. That's when she cried again. The next day forgave me. So when I got to Melbourne with the Lamas one year, after I'd become a nun, I was trying to make money for the prison, for the not prison project, it's 20 years later, for Kopan Monastery. So my mother decided to make me happy, to have a party for Kopan to raise money. So she invited all her friends and charged $100, and they all came. And so my mother, I wanted her to meet Lama Yeshe because he was in town and I was doing this party, you know. So my mother didn't want to meet the Lama. She was very proud. They made her really nervous. Lama Yeshe made her nervous. She'd seen Lama Zopa before and she didn't mind Zopa. She said Zopa was okay. He looked humble, so she could handle him. But Lama Yeshe looked too charismatic. So she was, no, I didn't like that Yeshe, she said. Anyway, I introduced her to Lama. She had a meeting with Lama. And I wasn't at the meeting. But Lama told me, when I picked my mother up after the meeting, I could tell he touched her heart very deeply. I could tell that. But she was angry. He kept looking at the television while I was talking to him. He really upset her pride. And Lama told me she poured out her heart to him. He's very charismatic, Lama, very powerful. And she would never pour her heart out to anybody. So she became very vulnerable, you know. She never did that. And then there he is, kind of looking like he's not interested in what she's saying and catching the television, you know. And so she was so upset about this. Now, and she used to have my friend Adele House, who wrote Big Love, that biography. She and I went to the same convent. We've known each other since we were little girls, you know. We went to the same Catholic convent. So Adele and my mother were really good friends. They drink sherry and gossip together, you know. They loved. And Adele said that my mother would always be saying, "Oh, that Yeshe, you know." She never liked that Yeshe. So I thought, oh God, she's criticizing a bodhisattva or whatever, you know. And then I heard this story about this bodhisattva. This is bodhisattva, not tantric, bodhisattva. And the thing is, once you become a bodhisattva, once you've really seriously done the second step and you've gone through love, compassion, blah, 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 and accomplished bodhicitta, you now go from life to life to life. Long term, two things: never stopping practicing becoming a Buddha, growing your power and your compassion, but also, you know, hooking sentient beings. You go from life to life. You don't walk around with a halo. You go around being an ordinary person, this person here, a homeless person, a fat person, a rich person, but you're hooking sentient beings. You're accumulating connections with countless sentient beings so that when they're ready to be led to enlightenment, you're going to meet them and you'll be able to drag them to enlightenment because you've hooked them. Do you understand? By using peaceful and wrathful and controlling methods. You get my point? So His Holiness, for example, you look at him. In our culture at this time, millions of people adore the Dalai Lama. They're not Buddhists, but so you could argue in countless lifetimes, he has hooked us individually, eyeball to eyeball, one person at a time by using peaceful, mostly for us using peaceful methods. How do we know? Because we think he's gorgeous. If he'd used wrathful methods, you'd be a Chinese communist who can't stand the sight of him. But he's also got them, hasn't he? He got them. They see him, they hate him,
Yeah.
but he must have been mean to them.
Interesting.
You get my point? The
Yeah.
way the way a person appears to you is the way that you've got the karmic connection.
Mhm.
So he's using peaceful methods for us, so we fall into his lap. He's got us, you know. Do you understand me? But look at the Chinese communists. They say he so upsets them, they can't stand it. But he's happy. He got him, you know. So this story, I remember hearing this story that Geshe Dagi had told about these bodhisattvas, and this is one particular dude going from life to life, and there he is in some village, and he's basically there he is being a nice person. He's using peaceful methods, and he's hooking everybody. He's been friends with people. Hello, how are you? And they like him, and he's just put him into his little entourage in his heart. And 27 years later, lifetimes later, they'll be ready, and they'll meet him again. Hello, I can lead you to enlightenment now because you're ready. You get my point? Got to have karmic connection. How can we meet anybody and like them or don't like them? It's because we have karmic connection. So this one old lady didn't notice him, and he couldn't leave her behind. You get my point? So he saw she had this beautiful garden, so he put his wrathful aspect on, and he rode his horse through her garden, destroying it. Well, now she noticed him. He got her, but he had to do that to get her. She didn't see him until then. You get my point? Now, what you would have seen is not some guy with a halo. Well, excuse me, I'm going to just hook this lady. No, he would have looked like a mean, ugly guy. They probably chucked rocks at him and threw him out of the village, you know? He didn't care. He got her. And I thought, that's what Lama did for my mother. He got her. If my mother had run that meeting, which she normally would have, she wouldn't even remember Lama Yeshe. You get my point? But he upset her mind, even by accident.
Oh, wow.
And she was really vulnerable. Well, my Lama got my mother. He hooked her. Do you understand me? I was so happy. You get my point? You get my point? So even in the end, when she died, she was in Queensland with my sister Jan, and all the family, and they're all in Melbourne, 3,000 miles, whatever it is, 2,000 miles away, and I was in London. I get this phone call, Robina, Mummy just died, what do I do? What do I do? You know, it's in the middle of the night, she'd sitting there in the chair, and she died. And my mother was a musician, so Janet had Bach on, really like Brahms, really loud Brahms playing. I said, say Om Mani Padme Hum into her ear. She said, Om what? So she wrote it down and then shouted Om Mani Padme in my mother's ear. And then I rang Lama Yeshe. He'd just arrived at Chen Raising Institute, 50 miles away. And I rang and said, can you do prayers and pujas? So he did. So my mother was cooked by Lama, you know, hooked by Lama. But he used slightly wrathful methods, slightly wrathful. He didn't scream at her, you know, but slightly wrathful. Wow. I like that story. Do you understand me? So this is bodhisattvas, okay? So this is why they say, and this is the whole thing about Buddhas, Aaron's question, Buddhas are crawling all over this planet as dogs, as they can manifest in anything at all. So if we understand this tantric model that I said before about all minds are inextricably linked to their own set of the four elements, then a Buddha's mind, if bodhisattva's a high being, can join their mind with any elements they like. They can manifest as a cup if they want. You hear what I'm saying? They can manifest as a dog, as a flower, to benefit sentient beings. But then it's not a dog, it's not a flower, you know. They're very powerful. And they're doing it all the time to benefit sentient beings, but we just can't, but we don't know because we're not clairvoyant. So that's why they say in the basic Buddhist, the Bodhisattva teachings, forget the tantric teachings, you don't know who anybody is, so don't judge. And this is so true. When you realize delusions, and this is more about delusions, when you really realize that literally when you're driven by this intense attachment, let's say, for that cake, we know it's true, that cake, we know it. When attachment and emotional hunger and neediness are there and the expectations are building up, just that cake on that plate, we know scientifically that the cake that attachment is seeing isn't the cake on the plate. And that literally means we're not in touch with reality. It's very simple. You know, when you're angry with someone, you know, when a person's angry with you, you can see that all they see is an ugly person. They've taken the one action you did and painted the whole of you with that one brush, and they don't see anything else. They don't see you. This is how we all live our lives, either seeing things through the lenses of attachment or aversion. That's it. We are literally not in touch with reality. Forget the root delusion, you know. It's so obvious. But if you won't know that, if you don't understand this middle scope about the mind, and you won't know how you can use attachment and aversion, like I just described, if you don't know this about the state of mind. So that's why you've got to have these earlier stages of practice to prepare you for tantra. You understand me, people? So the Buddhas are manifesting all the time. So in Tantra, the whole process, let's get to, so the compassion wing. Okay, let's go to the compassion wing, and we'll get to Tantra. Are we communicating so far? Are you seeing the logic to it all? You're seeing the steps. Isn't it? It's helpful, isn't it? Really helpful. We have to understand this. Oh, look at that. There we go. Okay.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
Darling, look at that. Wow, I love it. So I'm supposed to blow out 2 candles, am I?
Yeah, well,
This is now, it's 6 months late. It was 4 months. I was December 20, Sagittarius, year of the monkey, 80. So we're going to blow out delusions, okay? Blow out all the suffering, all delusions, and all the causes of suffering. All right.
that easy.
That easy. Go on like a dream. Okay, let's have a piece of cake each, all right? I'm sorry the people on Zoom can't share. You just have to use your subtle powers to come along here and use your subtle mind to enjoy, okay? Thank you, darling. Okay, people, come on. Let's keep talking. Do we have any questions so far? Please. Okay, go on. What's the question, Kate? Katie, what's the question?
It's about visualization.
Realization.
Visualization.
Visualization.
So Judith was telling me the first teaching she received.
Who told you?
Judith.
Judith told you.
Yeah, the first teaching she received from Lama Yeshe at Kopan in the 80s was about visualizing the purification of the speech in the Vajrasattva practice. And she said Lama Yeshe said to visualize honey, the nectar as honey. So it's viscous. So it was coming up, and then this kind of, it pushed out all the dark stuff from the top.
So then the question is?
The question is, I've never understood what the quality of nectar is.
I have no idea, darling.
Okay, so I was wondering.
I do not know.
And-
No, obviously, Lama said honey. We probably use that for some reason we use for Judith. But obviously nectar, I mean, okay. Let's get that until we get to the practices. Keep the question till we get to the practices, okay? Okay, questions, anybody? Any questions? You got a question there, Marianne? Yeah, somebody had a hand up on.
It's me, Janice.
Yes, hello, darling girl. You talk to me, Janice.
Hi,
Hello,
it's so
dear.
nice to see you.
Yes,
I think you
sweetheart.
answered. I think you answered already. We do a little Vajrasattva practice at the end. Can we please?
Well, I mean, I was going to do Tara, but maybe we'll do Tara as a purification practice, which is really how it is anyway. So I haven't
Okay.
done it. Do it. I have to. I mean, I keep promising. I will do it. I promise. I'll do, darling.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. So now we're up to the bodhisattva path. Okay. So we can imagine that we've gone through the first stage. We've controlled our body, controlled our speech, harnessed the energy of our body and speech. You know, stop killing, stealing, lying, bad mouthing, and all the rest. And even begun to extrapolate and realize it means don't eat 6 pieces of cake. And, you know, it doesn't say don't do that yet, because cakes don't mind if you eat 6 pieces. The main first level is at least don't do actions that harm others, because they are the heaviest actions which bring the heaviest karmic results for oneself. So we are the beneficiaries of the first level of practice. You have to keep remembering that. The trouble is, as soon as we hear don't kill, we assume it's for the sake of others. Not yet. You've got to understand that. It's the benefit. You are the beneficiary. But of course, as Lama Zopa says, incidentally, the rats and roaches will be happy and have a party. Could you leave them in peace? But the emphasis in the renunciation is for your own sake. We miss that in the West. We think it sounds, we get guilty, you know, oh, that can't be right. You don't understand, because that's what renunciation is fed up with suffering. That's why you stop causing it. So important. Okay, then the next level. You now begin to see your mind. You start to understand what attachment is and delusions and how they're misconceptions and how they project lies. Basically, as Lama Zopa says, what the delusions do is decorate on top of what is there, layers upon layers of characteristics that simply aren't there. This is the most perfect way of describing what delusions do, why they cause us to be misled, why they are literally misconceptions, but because they've been habitual for so many lifetimes, like that $50, for so long you've believed in the lie that the lie even appears to you on that $50 note. Can you hear that point? That's why it is so hard to give up attachment. That's the tragedy, you know. And this is the other thing that is even more tragic. Back in this first scope again. we understand the depth of karma and habit, and the necessity for vows, and the suffering if there aren't vows. I always use the example, you know, say someone who's addicted to fishing, someone who's a fisherman, let's just say, a person. And this particular story, I was use this story. Well, there's a little boy, this person, you can imagine, he's introduced to fishing for the first time. So before fishing, he hadn't thought of fishing because you have to make contact. So if you take the 12 links, so the 6th link is called contact. So that's when the karma begins to ripen. That's when it's like, you know, you meet cake, you make contact, and then the whole thing takes over. So and that's with meeting people. This link is really important. And what happens, this link called contact, is a state of mind. So in this case of this particular little boy, he had a human birth. He had a human birth, which means we can imagine, based on the next bit of the story, we're going to deduce that he'd been in the lower realms as a result of past killing. He'd exhausted the main result of that, which is the lower realms, and he gets, like a miracle, he gets a human mummy again. But he's got good tendencies, he's got good experiences, but he hasn't purified the other 3 residual results of the killing. And this is why it's so important to understand the ways that karma ripen. The first way that karma ripens is a type of rebirth, good or bad karma. So in terms of negative karma, in terms of killing here, he's been in the lower realms as a result of killing. That exhausts that karma, particular track of karma. It runs out. And one day, as an animal or something, one of his human karmic, one of his non-killing karmic seeds is triggered at the time of his death, and he gets a human mummy. So then there he is in the human birth. How marvelous. He's got a human birth, you know, but this is the tragedy. Because he hasn't lived in vows in the past, he's only purified the main result of killing, which is the lower realms. Now he's got the human birth, but the total tragedy is, and have a look at the human realm, please. He continues to have the tendency to kill. He has the next karma is called experiences similar to the cause, which is that you get killed or die young. And the next one is called environmental karma, in which you will be unhealthy and get sick and get, you know, pandemics and all. This is the environmental result of killing. So he's got the fruit of non-killing and gets a human body, but because he hasn't purified all aspects of killing by living in vows of not killing, he continues to have the residual result, and the worst one is the tendency to keep killing. So this is the tragedy. And look at the human realm. 7 billion humans. They've been in the lower realms, finished that level of killing karma, but they got the habit to keep killing. Most humans kill something. Most religions say it's okay to kill. I mean, have a look at the world. This is why His Holiness, when he gives vows in Dharamsala, he knows Western people, the idea of not killing anything, including an ant, is like a joke. So he just gives the vow as don't kill humans at least, you know? But this is the thing, because the habit to kill is so intense. It's normal. I mean, I was taught as a Catholic that God made animals and creatures without a soul, especially for our benefit. That's a very fascinating teaching, isn't it? So that gives us permission to kill them and eat them. I mean, this is God's teaching. It's very fascinating. It's a Christian's teaching. So of course, you know, I mean, some people particular view as really doing God's will to have animals and kill them and sacrifice them for God. I mean, many religions sacrifice animals, you know, some even sacrifice humans. We see it as religious. I mean, the Buddhist deal is don't harm anybody, please, because I mean, we've all been humans countless times and don't want to suffer. That's the logic in Buddhism. So you look at the vast majority of humans and cultures, killing is embedded in it, you know. This shows the intensity of the habit to kill. And because that's the heaviest karma, brings the heaviest karmic results, and therefore the heaviest suffering. I remember one Lama was asked, what is one piece of advice you give somebody? He said, don't kill. That's very powerful, isn't it? It's really obvious. So this little boy, let's think of this little boy, right? He's another little boy with good tendencies. His mother said he was very generous, very kind. He probably had good experiences. People liked him. And he also had good environmental karma. He had lots of good results, but he hadn't purified his killing karma. So he woke up in this life with a tendency to kill. Now, he didn't manifest until he made contact with fishing. So this is the 6th link. So suddenly there he is, a little boy, someone takes him fishing, and suddenly contact, what it does, it's a state of mind, but what it does is it already, based upon the past karma, that he had, in his case, strong tendency to kill, contact already immediately identifies the event, in this case fishing, as pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Neutral, right? Unpleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, like neither way. So there's only three kinds of feeling. I didn't go into this enough. I had to do it. I have to do it. I'm sorry. No, maybe no time. In the third category, remember the neither negative nor positive. In the one of the crucial ones in there is called feeling. You've got to understand this. It's not like we mean by an emotion. It's bare bones state of mind that is neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. And there are only three kinds: pleasant, which is called happiness; unpleasant, which is called suffering; or neither, indifferent, neutral. It's another. So forget the neutral. So as far as we are concerned in our lives, and all beings are the same, attachment's job, its job description is to search for and find an object that will trigger happy feelings. You get my point? And that's the philosophy of samsara. That attachment's job is to locate the event, the thing, the smell, the taste, the object, the event, the person, such that you have contact with it, and then it will trigger pleasant feelings, right? That's how we spend our lives. And that's the job of contact, is because of past karma, to identify that event, in this case fishing. And in his case, it identified as extremely pleasant. The next link is feeling, and now pleasure arises, and the extent of his past karma to kill is equal to the extent of the pleasure. So we are sitting ducks. Do you see my point? And the third one, the next link, 8, 7, 6, 7, 8, 8, attachment. And these happen in a billionth of a second. And attachment kicks in afterwards. And because the pleasure is delicious, the attachment kicks in and paints a divine picture of fishing. And so and that's the picture he saw all his life. Are you hearing me? So we are completely imprisoned in this. We're craving for happiness. We believe it comes from the external. He will see fishing. It triggers pleasant feelings, and then it paints a divine picture. So of course he will think he's won the lottery. Of course he will think he's found his purpose in life. He's so happy. He suddenly found his purpose in life, and it looks beautiful. That means he doesn't. And this is the tragedy of doing actions based on attachment, of harming others, that it seems benign. We don't ever think that fishermen are torturers. Fishing is accepted in our culture, and so people love to go fishing. They think it's lovely. They bond with their father. They see the water and the nature, and they never notice the fish in the boat dying an agonizing death. His mummy told me, this boy, she never liked fishing, but she didn't want to be rude to her boy. He always said, come fishing with me. So she went one time. And basically you could say, because she didn't have the tendency to kill, therefore didn't have pleasant feelings, therefore didn't have attachment, she could see nakedly the truth. The fish weren't happy.
Right.
Now, if it was pigs you were killing, you wouldn't want to go too many times because they spurt blood everywhere and they scream and yell. It makes it very unpleasant for us. But fish die quietly. They open their poor mouths. Their little eyes are open anyway. They wiggle their body. That's the best they can do. But and this is the sad part, he didn't see suffering. He saw his own projection. This is how delusions lie to us. Do you hear me? So, when you hear about, I remember always years ago, remember BTK? That's some state, there was some multi-murderer called BTK. Bind, torture, kill. He's this nice gentleman, Christian, with a husband, with a wife and children, and he felt, since he's a tiny little boy, had this powerful tendency to torture. Of course, you don't confess to that because no one will approve of it. So he keeps it secret. He doesn't know why he wants to torture, and that means he was compelled to do this action because of habit, and it triggered incredible pleasure in his mind. We hear that, we just think he's a monster and he should go to hell. But that's why, because he's done it before. And when did you do torturing? As an animal. So he was intensely attached to it. He lived it, so he built this dungeons, custom built, to torture people. He would, for 30 years, he did this hidden away, capture. He would kidnap people, always more than one. especially if they're close to each other. He would then bind them, had this whole scenario that he'd all mapped out in his crazy mind because of delusions. He'd mapped it all out. He would bind them. He would torture them. They would be in absolute screaming agony, and that's when he got his pleasure. He said when he had to confess in court after he got caught that he had what he called orgasms, which means sexual pleasure. Sexual pleasure, all that is referring to is very, very, very pleasant feelings. Are you hearing me? All it means is a level of feelings that's very delicious. Most people get it by having, penises and vaginas joining, or we're flexible these days. But get my point. Do you understand my point? But he had it by torturing. So of course the world thinks it's disgusting or horrifying. We have no explanation. It's because of habit. So he saw torture. He couldn't help but do it. He did it. He got pleasure, and then he killed the people. This is that's how he got his pleasure. So we just don't understand it. But if you understand karma and the 12 links and habit, then you can explain it, and then you can have compassion. Got a friend on death row, Mitchell's friend, our friend Mitchell. He's a Buddhist, amazing, lovely guy. I was there one time, and several times I've visited. And one guy who come to the teachings, and Mitchell pointed him out to me one time. And he said to me in a letter, he said, Robina, he thinks of torture all the time. Can you imagine the pain of being born like that? You don't know why. No one teaches you. Look at the pedophiles. We love to hate pedophiles. Some obsessive attachment to sexual energy with little children. Since you're tiny, you don't know why. The people who like to have sex with animals and stuffed toys, they don't know why. Habit. Karma is habit. So this is why if you live in vows, you're purifying killing 24 hours a day. So that will mean that next life you will get a human body. You will have no thought to kill. You will never get killed or die young, and you will not be sick. Surely the bare minimum we want is that type of life. Can you hear me? And the way to do that is live in vows. Very simple. Being a good person isn't enough, Richie says. This is technical about karma. The mind has to be involved. To create karma, the mind has to be involved. Good or bad karma. Just being a nice person, sitting back here, resting on our laurels and not killing, because of past virtuous karma, well, we don't need to kill because no one's attacking us. Do you understand? But we're not creating any virtue because your mind's not involved. Your mind's not saying, I must not kill. The only time you create a virtuous karma of non-killing is when I will not kill. Can you hear me? So it's awful if you don't live in vows. This is just being practical, not moralistic, Do you understand? This is totally tragic. That's the 12 links. It's incredible. And the level to which the pleasure is strong or weak is the degree of your habit. So no, and look at us. We can't even resist cake. Forget about torture. Do you understand my point? We can't even say no to the cake. Because why? Habit to eat. Everyone's got that. You see the cake and it's pulling you. It's compelling you. The pleasure rises at the very thought of it. The attachment makes it look divine. We feel like we're missing something. So of course you've got to stuff it in. Waiting for pleasure to come, It's heartbreaking. Do you understand? This is samsara, people. Okay, so let's go after the bodhisattva path. So, okay, we'll do that quick. So you've got to have bodhicitta, because bodhicitta, that's the cultivation. So, okay, in the compassion path, we know there's these series of techniques that culminate in bodhicitta. There's different techniques, there's 6 causes and 1 effect, and then the one called transforming the mind, the one of Lojong, the more radical one of exchanging self for others. And basically, you continue to work on your mind now. The emphasis in the first stage is to control yourself and back away and leave sentient beings in peace and don't harm them. You harness your energy. So already you become more peaceful, more relaxed, more fulfilled. But of course, also, you've moved away the rubbish that separates you from others. So you can't help but go, oh my God, we're all in the same boat. So now you keep working on your mind, but the emphasis now, you still continue to remove delusions, but the emphasis is not on to protect yourself from harming, but is to help others now. It's shifting. You understand? It's more advanced. So this is all expressed in the different levels of vows. So the first level of vows are called the vows of individual liberation. And this is the Hinayana path. The first and second scopes of the practices are the teachings that we share with the Theravadan path, the teachings you'll get in Burma or Thailand. It's exactly the same teachings, exactly the same practices. And the vows are called the vows that enabled you to achieve your liberation. So that's why without the vows, you can't even create virtuous karma, like we just described. So you've got to be living in these vows, and they enable you to quickly rid the mind of the delusions so that you get renunciation, and then you can get shamatha, and then you can realize emptiness, and then you get the hell out of samsara. That's the Theravadan path. And you finish the job, you're out of samsara, you zap into nirvana. You're finished. Do you understand me? But here, we don't do the concentration and the wisdom yet. That comes at the end in the bodhisattva path, right? So then now we go, then that's the emphasis on controlling yourself, leaving it, mind your own business, have a simple life, don't eat too much, don't have too much sex, drugs, rock and roll, calm yourself down, and you become a more content, fulfilled person. That's the bottom line from renunciation. Now you go to the bodhisattva path because you start to realize we're all in the same boat. So now that this is all expressed by the bodhisattva vows, they also, vows by definition are behavior, not the mind. You're harnessing your behavior. You're shaping, like Alex Burton says, vows like shaping your behavior. Just like the vows that don't do this in the car, you're shaping your behavior to become a good driver. Here we're shaping our behavior to become a good human being. First, non-harming yourself, and now not harming others. I mean, not now beginning to want to benefit others, you know. But these vows are still, there's a lot more of those. There's 18 root vows and 46 secondary vows. And they're all related to helping you develop the 6 perfections of the bodhisattva. The vows, especially the secondary ones. But the emphasis in these vows is still don't do this and don't do that. The difference is here is that it's the motivation that makes you break it or not. So here with the bodhisattva vows, you can break a vow based on the motivation. There's no wriggle room in the first lot. You just don't kill, okay? Here, you even have a vow that you can break an earlier vow, steal, kill, lie, if it's based on compassion. So that's why you don't play with this. This is profound. Do you understand my point? But like we said before, it's like tough love, you know? But you can't play with that. Well, I'm going to kill you for your sake. Excuse me, back off. So here, the motivation is the crucial point. So there's and again, these bodhisattva vows, also I've taken bodhisattva vows, we won't even be able to label one of them. We've got to learn them. The secondary vows, 46 of them, are all grouped in terms of helping you develop the 6 perfections. So the first bunch help you practice generosity. The next bunch help you practice morality to help others. The next bunch help you practice patience. They're really helpful to read, you know, they're so helpful. Understanding them, they're so helpful. And all they're doing is, the key point here is, in the first lot, you keep the vow to protect you from suffering. Here, you keep the vow to help you do what's best for the other person. That's the point in the bodhisattva vows. So in other words, you know, someone offers me cake. Let's say I don't like cake. Just I don't like cake. I would break my bodhisattva vow if I said, no, thank you, I don't like cake. We wouldn't think it's a problem. We just say, oh, she doesn't like cake. We don't mind. But without thinking, I say, no, thank you. On what basis did I say, no, thank you? On my attachment. So I broke a bodhisattva vow. I prevented you from creating merit. So these vows force you to make a decision based on what's best for the other person. This is profound. It really opens your mind, but you've got to practice it. You don't say, oh, I will accept it even though I don't want it, just so for your benefit. No. Even if you're gluten-free, you would never think I'm going to take a piece of gluten cake, bread. You don't have to eat the damn thing. Just accept it and say thank you. It's a whole different approach. Do you understand me? It's really quite profound because you have to catch yourself and check what's best for the other person. You don't do it in a grandiose way, but you're practicing doing what's better for the other person rather than yourself. That's the point of the bodhisattva vows. They're so helpful. And there's 18 root ones and 46 secondary. There's many things to learn. You can't just say, I've got the bodhisattva vows, but you don't study them. How will you know if you've broken one? Do you understand me, people? They're so helpful to read. It's so helpful to look at them. And there's really nice commentaries, you know. That's the nature of the bodhisattva vows. It's amazing. So lovely. So helpful. Incredible. Change your mind completely. Change your behavior completely. So that in general, you do it for the sake of the other. So you'd say, thank you, I'd love a piece of cake. So I know I try to practice when I go down the street and people get, in a busy city and they hand out leaflets to you. I always accept their leaflet for the latest hairdresser. I don't need a bloody hairdresser. But I thought, well, that's good. That person gave a little gift to a nun. I'm happy for them. Thank you very much, I'll say, and take their notice. Do you understand me? It doesn't take long to practice. You've got to think about it, then you'll do it with a happy mind. So simple. Because we just do everything what's benefit for me. We don't think it's bad. You're not being that selfish. Just say, I don't eat bread. That's okay. No one's worried about it. No one's going to be offended. But it's so marvelous to think this other way. Thank you so much. How kind you are. Thank you for your gift. It's incredible. And the other one, like I said, is you even can break an earlier vow if it is benefit to the other person. And you can't play with that, You've got to be so serious. Do you understand me? You've got to have wisdom. Wow. So anyway, all this practice of equanimity and then love and compassion, great compassion. And this is the key factor here of great compassion. Compassion is the wish that others don't suffer. But the key characteristic of the bodhisattva path is great compassion. So it's not only, oh my gosh, may you not suffer. It's the responsibility. What can I do to take it away? That's the character of the bodhisattva compassion. That's the one. So you can argue if you're on the Theravada path, when you've got rid of delusions, you've got incredible compassion. You have incredible love for others. Of course you do. How could you not? You've rid the mind of delusions. You end up just being a nothing person. You're full of virtues. Of course you have. But what happens is, because your goal from life after life is nirvana, your liberation. At the time in that life when you've achieved your nirvana and you die, at that time, your motivation to get out of samsara and your bliss override your compassion, and you zap into bliss and don't come back. But if you're programmed on the Mahayana path, your wish to help others overrides your bliss. If you've got if you've got already samadhi. But if you've got compassion, this is why bodhicitta should come before samadhi in the bodhisattva path. Because if you've got samadhi, you have got such bliss you can't even imagine it just from samadhi. You can't even imagine the bliss, the rapture, the ecstasy, as Lama says. So if you get concentration and bliss first before bodhicitta, you're going to forget all about sentient beings, I tell you. That's why, even though, that's why concentration and bodhicitta, the fifth and the sixth of the perfections, are in their nature Theravadan teachings. The Theravadan yogi has to have emptiness and concentration. So, of course, they can't be Mahayana teachings. They're Hinayana teachings. But that's here. They're put at the end of the six perfections, and bodhicitta comes first. Because if you've got bodhicitta first, you won't get seduced by the bliss. The bodhicitta is so insanely outrageous in this wish to help others. You won't get seduced by bliss. Do you understand my point? Mm-hmm. So bodhicitta is the culmination of this incredible. I mean, it's almost hard. And when I first heard the teachings about bodhicitta, I couldn't believe these people were speaking the truth. It just seemed too insane. And then when you think about people we know, like Lama Zopa, when I had to write that eulogy, I don't know if you read that about Lama Zopa, it blew my mind just to hear the qualities. You can't believe the qualities of this person. It's hard to imagine in ordinary terms that it's a real thing. It's real that people can be like this, But you read it and see it in the teachings and all the methods how to get there. It's outrageous. It's phenomenal, amazing, that level of love and compassion. Inconceivable. That's bodhicitta. Now, next stage after that, you now go bopping along life after life after life, perfecting the six perfections. The first four, you're perfecting the virtues, generosity, morality, patience, and enthusiasm. That's in your day-to-day life, bopping along, benefiting sentient beings and hooking them. And in your meditation, you're perfecting the last two, realizing emptiness, And then when they culminate, accumulate enough, then you're a Buddha. But at this point, you then go to Tantra. And why you want to practice Tantra, the only reason is because you have such compassion for sentient beings, such, as Lama Zopa calls it, unbearable compassion, which we can't even conceptualize, we can't even imagine it. You have such unbearable compassion for the suffering of every single sentient being that you just can't bear the thought of them suffering. You can't bear the thought of wasting time. So then you hear there's methodology that gets you enlightened quickly. You are beyond joyful. So the only reason you practice Tantra is because you can get enlightened more quickly. When we hear that, we think, oh, that's a good way. I'd rather get enlightened quickly. Thank you very much. I think I'll do Tantra. No. The point about that is that if you're a bodhisattva, you would happily, I always think of a mother, you know, a mother would happily crawl from here to San Jose if the medicine's in San Jose. If she's got a broken leg, she would crawl her way to San Jose, wouldn't she? Because she's got compassion. But she can get a bloody car to get there. Wouldn't she take the car? Why? Because get there quickly. Not because she's lazy. That's the point about a bodhisattva. They would walk to, you know, they'd go to hell for sentient beings. But if they've got a method to get quickly enlightened, that's what drives. That's like without bodhicitta, tantra is useless. Tantra is total poison. Do you understand me? It's total poison. It's just useless. The reason to practice tantra is because you have compassion. That's it. And what enables you to practice it is emptiness, I'd say. The bliss that you can get based on renunciation and the bodhicitta and the emptiness. Because the person, even just the way we're talking here about the 4 different kinds of deities, the 4 different kinds of ways to benefit sentient beings, how could you possibly, peaceful maybe is fine, but even the peaceful one is already hard because it means there's no delusions there. It's only virtue. It's only love, only compassion, only kindness, only patience. And you'll do whatever you need to do to be a benefit to others using sweet methods. Then you've got the wrathful one. So how could you possibly use anger, which is a heavy-duty delusion that wants to harm others? How could you use it, the energy of it, put it that way, meaning simply the aspect of it, pretending to be angry? It's not complicated to think that way. That's what it means, using anger. You pretend to be angry. That's all it means. You see my point? That's all it means. You pretend to be angry. Well, the only person who can pretend to be angry is the person who doesn't have anger. If you're angry, then you can't pretend. You do it naturally. That means it's a disaster because anger is the wish to harm. Anger is coming from I. It's not possible that that can be a benefit to others. It's got to not come from I. That means it has to be pretend. Can you get my point here? My point. That's why you've got to understand renunciation and understanding bodhicitta. The only person who can manifest an angry aspect for the sake of others is with wisdom that knows it's the only way to do it, and they can pretend, and they will risk their reputation to do that even. I remember Lama Yeshe one time when his first student of his, Zena, she was in the mountains up in the, you know, in the Laudo area, and she was meditating on Yamantaka retreat. And Lama knew with his clairvoyance that she was really sick. In fact, she died there. Well, he showed the aspect, as they say. He had to get the airplane from Lukla up there, and he pushed himself in front of other people, showing really rude behavior, something like shouting and yelling and demanding a seat, how important it was. People were so upset by him. They would have been really this rude Lama. Who does he think he is? He didn't care. Do you see my point here? You don't have to be courageous to show anger. Even you don't have anger. You've got to be courageous to show because people are going to criticize you. He didn't care. It was solely based on compassion for this person. He had to get there, you know. That's courageous. But if you've naturally got anger, then you're not pretending. Then it's a disaster. You can't help anybody. But you're communicating. It's not complicated, really. But that means you have to know it's possible to get rid of anger. And it's possible to get rid of attachment. You have to know it's possible. So then you show this aspect of the controlling or powerful. You'll be able to seduce people. I mean, this is a really funny story. This is this one. You listen to this one. One of my friends married to they're both students. And she fell in love with somebody else. And she's going to leave the husband. Both students of Lama Zopa. And so they were, you know, discussing it, and he was brokenhearted. And they had a meeting with Rinpoche, talking all about it. And then she said that she had a private meeting, and Rinpoche spent hours loving her, stroking her face, praising her, gave her jobs to run this center, to do that thing. She said by the end of the night, she'd given up leaving her husband. She said, he seduced me. You understand? That's a simple example. I mean, he doesn't strike my cheek, I promise. He would hit it probably. So he did what he had to do to seduce her. Not shout at her, not yell at her, but to seduce her by praising her and giving her a job and making her important. And by the end of the night, she said, I decided I wouldn't leave him. She was so shocked. Yeah, that's a simple example, you know. Do you understand me? I mean, if somebody saw him stroking her cheek, they might accuse him of a sexual abuse. Because it's a Lama, you know. Are we communicating here? We can see these qualities. People who are very sort of like seductive and beautiful, who are so charismatic and appealing, they can win anybody over. And they can be used in the most monstrous way. You can see that, how we use seduction to harm other people to get what we want. You can see it's evil, you know. But if you're a bodhisattva, you can use it effortlessly because that's the method that'll work for that person. That's the whole point, you know. So this way of these deities is completely embedded in bodhicitta and wisdom, knowing what is best for the person in front of you. You effortlessly do it. And the only person qualified is the person who's given up attachment and anger and delusions and best even realize emptiness. It's really obvious, you know, nothing complicated. This is Tantra. So then, of course, at a more subtle level, the technical aspect of utilizing attachment on the path is very specific, okay? So in single point of concentration on the sutra teachings, the Theravadan teachings, is a Hindu teaching actually. You with incredible discipline, you train the mind to go beyond the grosser level of conceptuality, you go beyond the sensory, you get to this subtle level that we don't even posit, as I say, as existing in our culture, where you get this incredible subtle level of samadhi, where the mind is just utterly, insanely, extraordinarily vast as the universe, as if you can count every atom in the universe, Lama says, utterly in rapture and bliss, but completely calm mind, not demented, not crazy like we have, utterly joyful, utterly blissful. That bliss is incredibly powerful. So even just at the level of samadhi, the sutra teaching, when the mind is very blissful, you combine that with concentration, it can be super laser focused. So Tantra is simply a method in this technical sense of utilizing, this is why all the visualizations in the more advanced practices, you visualize the deity in union with the wisdom mother, or if it's a female one, in union with the male one, you know, and that's literally visualizing. When you have this visualization, these simple practices, these practices, like the first level of practice in Tantra, and these high practices called the generation stage, where you practice visualizing yourself as the deity. So you're using your really brilliant creative imagination, basically, literally developing the brilliant skill to literally visualize yourself first out there and then yourself as that Buddha. You're using your clever creative imagination, which we know we have buckets of. You know, we can sit there all day visualizing our new boyfriend. We're really good at it. We know how to visualize. People say, oh, I can't visualize. Well, yes, you can. You're mad as hell at your boyfriend. You can single-pointedly focus on him and no one will disturb you, I promise. So we can concentrate and we can visualize. So you're using that skill. But because you're a yogi who's ideally got bodhicitta, got emptiness, and got samadhi, then when you visualize these deities, particularly the one where in union with the wisdom mother, then you visualize literally sexual union. And your mind, that enables your mind to go to even a more subtle level, because the bliss is so tremendous. But because you don't have delusions, that bliss doesn't make you berserk, as Lama Yeshe puts it. And that bliss combined with concentration makes the mind go to even a more subtle level, which is what you need to access in order to realize emptiness and get realizations. So it's a technical point. Are we communicating here? But we're not capable of that, because we haven't even got samadhi yet. Forget about not having renunciation, bodhicitta, or emptiness, or realizations. But you can practice. You practice, literally practice, putting those imprints in your mind. So that literal sense, but the technical point there is you're not actually using attachment. You're using the bliss that is triggered by contact with an attachment object. That's technically what you're doing. So we can practice that with our food. Keep it simple. You know, so so this is where, for example, in Tantra, you would, in the offering of, it's like you'd visualize even just the cake. So the bodhisattva approach, so the renunciation approach to the cake is just have as little as possible. Control yourself. And the best way to control yourself, they say, is to see it as shit. I always thought it was a waste of time. Who'd want to do that? Why would you even bother eating it? Just give it up, you know, forget it. You wouldn't even eat it. You become an anorexic, isn't it? So don't bother. The next one is you think first, I'm going to eat so I can be happy and healthy to benefit others. That's putting bodhicitta as a motivation, which is already fantastic. Now, on the tantric level, you actually do the one of, you know, visualizing it as nectar, as knowing, okay, get to nectar now, forget the nectar for the minute. But you visualize that thing, and then you visualize Om Mahung, the whole way of doing it, the energy of the body, speech, and mind of all the holy beings melting into it and turning into transcendental nectar. You just visualize, you pretend, you imagine. That's straight from Tantra. And then you imagine offering it, and then when you eat, you would then you would offer the cake, the nectar, and you would offer the joy that you experience. You would visualize that, you would imagine that. So this is tremendously powerful. That joy, they say that the meaning I said of offering is to imagine the recipients experiencing the bliss of receiving it. So for yourself, if you've taken empowerment, you'd see yourself as a deity, you'd see this food as nectar, you'd offer it and bless it, think this way, and then when you eat it, you imagine as the deity, you're experiencing bliss, and you'd offer the bliss. This is the approach in Tantra, you practice this new way of seeing it. Otherwise, you just like a pig and shove it in. This is how we die, isn't it, with attachment, like junkies, So this way you're transforming your mind, you're utilizing attachment. It's all practice. You're not doing it yet, but you're practicing it. This lifts your mind. When you've received initiations, you have a commitment to see yourself as the deity, to see everybody else as the deity, to hear all sound as mantra, and to see all the environment as the Pure Land, and therefore to see everything as blissful nectar. It's an incredible, you're lifting your game. You're seeing it as, right, they say in Tantra, we suffer because of ignorance. That's never different, okay? Because we have delusions, we misconceive things, blah, blah. But the particular approach in Tantra is as a result of this ignorance, we see everything as very gross and mundane. We're very kind of like gross animals, really. So here in Tantra, you try to lift your view and learn to see things in the nature of bliss and emptiness. That's how they talk. So you're training your mind to see things as nectar, as radiant, as blissful, as joyful, as light, yourself, others, food, sounds, smells, taste, and you learn to offer, offer the objects of the five senses. It's a whole, it's so, to hear like this is so delicious, isn't it? It's so practical. You're lifting your game. You're changing your mind. You're training yourself to lift, to see things as transcendental. Are we communicating here? That's the energy of Tantra. That's the approach of Tantra. You've got to remember to do it. Of course, you can't do it properly. You have to train. When you first pick up a tennis racket, you're not practicing tennis. It's like a joke, but you've got to start somewhere. Same here. Are we communicating, people? Yes. Answer your questions?
Yes.
Good, darling. It's so practical. It's so delicious. Then, of course, if you have, and because you're trying to see yourself as a deity, and that's why I love this phrase, divine pride. Don't be ashamed of it. You have divine pride of being the Buddha. How incredible. Because the mind is the most powerful thing, just by thinking these thoughts, this is putting unbelievable imprints in your mind. You're putting atomic bombs under self-pity and garbage and junk. You're putting atomic bombs under delusions. It's just so joyful, so delicious. Because your mind, as Lama Yeshe says, your mind creates negativity, so you purify it by your mind creating positivity. It's the best positive thinking you could ever imagine. Buddha's your best one. Positive thinking. He's your past. He's the boss in that. I promise. Tantra is the essence of it. So the bodhisattva one is you dress beautifully so people can be pleased when they see you. You don't stink like a toilet, I mean, one year, the last time I saw Lama, I was in London. And I was so happy, so excited, because I got the job of being his attendant for about 8 days with my friend Harvey in San Jose. I felt like I won the lottery. I couldn't believe it. And we were taking care of him, And I remember we just had to give him his tea and do this, and I was hopeless. I didn't know how to take care of anybody. I never thought of taking care. I never took care of anybody. In the family of 7 kids, I never picked up a dish. I never washed it. I just assumed everybody else's job to wash the dishes and put them in. I must have been some bossy monk in a past life, I think. It was my job. I never thought about it. So somehow dishes got done, So anyway, I didn't thought of helping people. In fact, this is very funny, but people said I was a kind child, but I never thought of the concept of helping somebody. It sounds peculiar. And then I saw we talk at school what we're going to do when you leave, when he goes and say, oh, I'd be a nurse. And I say to myself, what do you be a nurse for? Why don't you be a doctor? I couldn't understand it, When I went to maths first, I thought I'm going to be a priest, not the altar boy, the priest. Of course I did. I want to be the boss, I didn't think of it as helping people. I thought it was being the boss. So I like to be the boss. I'm really serious. So then helping people. I thought, what do you mean helping people? I'm doing patient. Then I heard about bodhisattvas. There's some kinds. One that goes behind, like the shepherd, and always goes last and helps people forward. The other one leads the way. I thought, thank goodness, there's a place down. I'll lead the way. Thank you very much. That's why on the planes, I'm the first in the row. I'm first out. Do you understand? I think I could try and do it with bodhisattva. But the one of helping people. Why am I saying this? Where was I with it before about helping people? What was I talking about? Helping people.
You were talking about Lama Yeshe, you were his attendant.
Oh, that's right. So that's right. That's exactly. So then, what was I talking
With
about?
Harvey.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't know how to help people. I was supposed to be an attendant, which means get the dishes and wash this and give them a cup of tea. And I was so self-conscious and so embarrassed, and I didn't know what to do. And he kind of whacked me and said, "You're so stupid. Can't you do this?" And I didn't know how to wash a dish. I didn't know how to serve a cup of tea. I didn't know how to do anything. I really mean it. I really, really, truly mean it. But I was kind. People told me. I hadn't thought of helping people. That's why I hadn't heard of serving people. When I ran away from home when I was 19, I lied and said I'd been a waitress. I couldn't get a job, you know. I had like $20 in my pocket. And I stayed at this Catholic hostel and I tried to get a job. I couldn't. I never got a job before. I'd worked in our printing company in the family. So I remember going to this restaurant. I'd be desperate. I said I'd been a waitress before, so he believed me. But after 2 hours, you could see I was a disaster. I didn't know how to serve anyone. I had no clue what to do. I was a complete disaster, you know. And he gave me my £2 and said, "Please, thank you, goodbye."
Bye-bye.
It was Lama. I didn't know how to help, and I was just complete confusion the whole time. He whacked me and shouted at me. I didn't know what to do. I know, as we say in Australia, I didn't know whether I was Arthur or Martha. These days we don't know whether Arthur or Martha either, do we? You know. Anyway, I remember, what am I telling you? Some story here or not? I can't remember.
Something about looking nice or.
Oh yeah, about looking nice. That's right. And I took him home, back to Lama's room one day. We got out of when this lady got out of the elevator, and she went past us, and he said, "Oh, she smells nice." "Not like you. You stink like a toilet," he said. And they said, "Oh, just joking, dear," as he'd say. But in fact, I did stink like a toilet. I didn't take care of my body. I didn't think about such things. Do you understand me? At a certain stage, you know, if you're so overwhelmed, you're worrying about your delusions and your drama, and I'm a nun anyway, so you think it doesn't matter. But how rude of me to stink to other people, especially my Lama. I was mortified. Then Lama put me on a diet. He took care of me. He came down one morning for breakfast, and he told me what to eat. I typed it up. You know, 1 bit toast. Then lunch was, you know, he said bit meat and bit vegetable, no soup because it make me fat. Remember the vivid. So every time I eat meat, I think I'm doing Lama's wishes, you know. So funny. He tried in the most practical way. He tried to help me become an ordinary person with a bit of self-respect and not stink, you know, but also for the sake of others. So they have this awareness that not vanity. We've all got attachment. We always want to look nice, but do it with this bodhisattva approach. Now the tantric one, even more so. You want to be a deity for others. You don't do it self-consciously, but you have this sense of wanting to be a deity. And because you have to go to work and go here and go there, well, just be nice looking. Why not? Do you see my point? Even make your house beautiful. Now, I sound strange because I'm a nun, but I've got a place in New York City, and I've got, you know, whatever reasons, doesn't matter. And I had to furnish it in somewhere. I've got a benefactor, whatever. But I decided I'd make it beautiful. I thought of it, I was going to do it as if Lama Zopa came to stay. So I bought beautiful things and beautiful bowls and beautiful statues. I mean, I could fortunate to do it. But why look like an ugly place and smelly? Oh, I'm renounced, it doesn't matter. Well, if I go to the cave, yes, then it doesn't matter. But I'm living in New York City. I've got to be a proper lady, you know. So even when I walk around, I wear my nice blue jacket to look like a respectable lady, not like some ugly looking old nun with 3 different colour maroons on. I hate that. You understand me? You understand? I'm very conscious about that. And I've got to do it with the right motivation. It's not the nun's motivation, it's the bodhisattva motivation. I've got to. I try to clean myself, not smell, shave my head nicely, have my nice glasses. I mean, you understand me? You've got to do it in a practical way. I'm still a nun. I'm happy to be a nun, no problem. If I go to Kopan, I wouldn't do that. You always have to. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough. Do you understand my point? To have that awareness, and think of it for others. To make people happy. You know yourself when you're a bit miserable and someone smiles at you, you'll never forget it. Do you understand me? That's the tantric approach, and that's the bodhisattva approach. It makes sense if you think about it. And it's good for you because you're lifting your view of yourself. You know, that's the real one in Tantra. You're lifting your view of yourself, identifying with being your future Buddha. It's so good for the mind, I tell you. So good for the mind. They say these practices are bringing the future result into the present. That's how they talk about it. Do you understand? Makes so much sense. It's so sensible, you know, it's so practical. Not some esoteric trip. It's really practical, you know. And then, of course, what else do you know, you're trying to transform and offer the objects of your senses. Well, that includes if you've got a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you hop into bed together. Well, then how about being generous and offering yourself to that person? I really mean that. When it comes to sex, we're so self-centered. We think if I don't feel like it, then excuse me, I want to go to sleep. Screw you, you know. Well, if you don't feel like it, that's the best time to offer sex to the person. Are you hearing my point? When you don't feel like it is the time to do it. Not out of attachment. That's generosity. And that's a virtuous action if you think about it. You do it genuinely out of compassion and offering, even though you don't feel like. I really mean it. Do you see my point? Same as accepting a meal if you don't feel like it, because it's the sake of the other. Everything we do, that's used bodhicitta, and that's also in the one of tantra, giving pleasure to the person. I really mean it. If you've got to be in that relationship, then you do it properly. Otherwise, be a nun, please. Do you understand me? Are we communicating? Are we communicating online? Are we communicating, people?
Yeah.
They can still hear me online. When you put it in these terms, it's very practical. We can hear it, you know, to make it esoteric. Of course, it's esoteric. I mean, to really be a serious tantric practitioner, you've got to have incredible knowledge and incredible brilliance and incredible technical skill, you know. Can the people hear me? Yeah, they can hear me. Okay, so we know the stage of practice when you're on the fourth stage of the fourth tantra, the first level of highest yoga tantra, the first stage of realization is what they call the generation stage, where you've practiced to perfection the ability to see yourself as a deity. And the proof of success is that you're able to visualize yourself and the entire merit field as big as that perfectly for hours. So that's when it gets technical, okay? The best we can do is pretend, but it's still good because it's sowing the seed, you know? So I need to know if there are any questions, please, before we do the meditation. I mean, all of this is not explicitly tantra, but it's giving you background, right? Don't you agree?
Yeah.
Do you understand me now?
Yes.
This is what we're talking about tantra. We're talking about the three prerequisites, but this is how you can talk about it, you know? Referring it to tantra, seeing the reason, the logic of it. This qualifies you to actually practice. It qualifies you to even enter into it and gives you the reasoning for it. Then it qualifies you experientially, emotionally, psychologically to be able to practice, you know. So any questions, please? Questions. Now is a chance to ask questions. Everybody, anybody, somebody. Yes, sweetheart. Go, Janice.
I recently heard of divine pride being referred to as tantric pride, and I liked that a lot. I think that the word divine triggers all sorts of meanings. Do you have an opinion?
Yeah, people can call it that if they like, but the term is divine. And what's wrong with divine? No, tell me seriously, what's wrong with
Sounds Catholic to me. That's all. Yeah.
divine? Oh, really? Divine is a beautiful word, divine. So, of course, technically it is divinity, divine is really referring to the Buddha, to God, I know. But I mean, we can be flexible and change our definitions. And then if you take tantric pride, you got to know what tantric means. What's the difference? You got to still know what it means. You
Right.
know?
Exactly.
That can be more likely misrepresented, I would suggest. Tantric. Divine pride means having pride. I mean, this blissful, non-attached, you know, delight in being the Buddha. That's what divine pride means. It's marvelous, beautiful. I love it. Whichever word works for your mind, I'd say. Janice.
Thank you.
And it's really, it's a total antidote to self-pity. I mean, Lama would refer to ego as self-pity. It was very shocking to hear it. He'd always joke when he said it. But you analyze when you're full of attachment and anger and depression and anxiety, you are oneness with self-pity. It's poor me. And I mean, the world is horrible. Bad things do happen, but it's still true. It's totally poor me. And it's the opposite, the utter, complete, 100% opposite of seeing yourself as tantra. You know? So that's why even just a little thought, the practice, visualizing this blissful, just even thinking of it as action, positive, courageous, you know, imagining it out there, imagining coming into you, imagining being that one. That's an incredible antidote. Straight away, you know. It's so clear, isn't it? Are we communicating? Isn't it? So let's do the practice then. Okay. There's nothing more to say about Tantra except really, I think this is really the main things, the main points, you know. But to be fully developed in actually practicing this technical level, that's a whole other kettle of fish. There's no question. But there's so much we can do preparing ourselves for future ability to get realizations, you know. And like one more point that's interesting. Why is it fast? This is a bit odd for us. Why is it quick? Well, it's a technical reason. On the Bodhisattva path, you have to, remember we have to, no, in general, to become a Buddha, you have to accumulate, as they say, you have to accumulate a certain amount of wisdom energy and a certain amount of compassion energy. These are the two wings of the bird. You with my point here? And so on the Bodhisattva path, you practice the first four: generosity, morality, patience, and perseverance. That's the practicing, that's the accumulating over life after life of the appropriate amount of virtuous karma that eventually is enough to be able to become a Buddha. And then on the wisdom wing, in your concentration, you're meditating on emptiness and you're accumulating the wisdom. And the culmination of these two together is Buddha. Are you seeing what I'm saying? So it's sort of like you've got to accumulate, you know, a certain amount of stuff. Well, the tantric path, because of a particular reason, which I'll tell you, you accumulate this much more quickly. In fact, they say it would take you countless eons to accumulate the amount of merit and wisdom on the bodhisattva path. It could take you just several lifetimes on the tantric path. And the simple technical reason, and this is not meaningful for us, we can't hear it, is that you can, on the bodhisattva path, on the sutra path, which is the sutra path, you've got to accumulate wisdom in your meditation and you accumulate merit in your daily life. You've got to do them separately. But the tantric path, technically, and we don't understand it, that by seeing yourself as the deity and by meditating on emptiness as the deity, you accumulate both together. That's the reason it's quick. Don't ask me what it means. I have no idea. But that's the answer. All right? As we study it, we'll get to understand it. So I suppose it means that the mind is that much more powerful because it's the mind that accumulates all this stuff. It's the mind, something mysterious. It's your mind. So it's obviously the power of these practices must be so stupendous that it's able to purify like atomic bomb because what you're doing becoming a Buddha, you're doing two things. You're removing the weeds and you're growing the flowers, speaking simply. You understand my point? So all practices do a bit of both. So it must be in Tantra, the practices are so powerful that you're able to quickly purify the delusions and quickly accumulate the virtue. That's all it must be. Get my point? Do you understand my point? It's technical, you know. As we study, we'll get to understand it. So I think we should do the practice now. Do you think so?
Yes,
Okay,
please.
good darlings. That's wonderful. Okay, let's do Tara then. Okay, so just sit up straight. Most of us in chairs, so don't sit at the back of the chairs. Don't slump. Sit up, hold yourself up and have your feet firmly on the ground, okay? Because when you're sitting cross-legged, you have to hold yourself up, otherwise you'll fall over. And that makes the body very stable. So ideally, there's various points about the body, and His Holiness says ideally it'd be best if we can for a moment start your session in full lotus position, because in the more advanced stages you need to be in that position, simply because when you're a great yogi like Geshe-Lama Kontrog for day on day and weeks on end in deep samadhi, the only way you can sit up straight is by being in full lotus, because your body becomes very stable. There's a practical reason, because your body's stable. You can sit like that for months. You know, if you're in a chair, you just flop over. If you're sitting regularly, you just flop. But if you're in full lotus, it keeps your entire body. Also, the subtle energy can flow nicely, and your body can stay upright. This is amazing. It's very practical. You know, that's what the yogis need to do, to stay there for days and weeks. So if we can't do that, fine. Just sit there for a moment. His Holiness is really auspicious to be able to do that for a second. So then if you can't do that, regular cross-legged. And if you can't do that, here we are sitting in chairs. So we sit with our body upright. So then your feet on the ground and your hands. So that the other one is the hands one. Okay, there's many mudras or gestures, but the one we're classically taught is the left hand underneath, the right hand on top, and the thumbs touching, forming a triangle, but not squashed against your body, your arms away from your body, okay? That's your legs and then your hands. So your back, they say your shoulders upright, but relaxed. So think of your whole body as upright. But as soon as you sit upright, we tense the muscles. So relax the muscles, but stay upright. So really consciously relax the muscles, especially the abdomen. They don't say that in the texts. Relax, flop the muscles, but keep the body upright. That's really important. So then the energies can flow nicely, and the wind energies and the mind can flow through the channels, and you don't sort of get all tired. Then the head is the most important one. So not the most, but one of the ones. There's several points. Have your head slightly tilted forward, chin tucked in slightly. If you had your head thrust back, it makes the mind agitated. Slightly tilted forward. Then your jaw relaxed, and they all say the lips slightly apart, tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, and all the yogis and yoginis over the centuries have found that this helps you not dribble. Very practical. Not have to swallow your spit all the time if you're going to be meditating for a long time. So tip of the tongue behind the top teeth, just near the palate, lips slightly apart, chin tucked in, tilted forward slightly your head. And then your eyes, ideally again for the long-term meditators, best to have your eyes open because they meditate day and night. So if you're meditating in the day, then the eyes open can help the light come in that keeps your mind sharp. Because your mind's more subtle, you don't get distracted by the external objects. So most of us might, so probably have your eyes lightly closed, but your eyes beneath your eyelids should be looking down, as if you're looking along your nose at the ground, okay? Now that's the position. Bottom, legs, hands, back, shoulders, chin, tongue, lips, eyes. Okay, now settle into this position. And forget about your body, okay? So wanted to do a preliminary little breathing meditation. I'm going to whip outside for a second when you do that. I'll tell you what to do, and I'll come back in a second. So what you do is, we're just going to do a simple meditation of watching the breath to stabilize our mind. So it's very simple. We're just going to locate the sensation at your nose, okay, at the tip of your nose. Just locate that sensation first as the air goes in and out. Locate it. It's a general area because it's slightly different as you go in and out, isn't it? So just locate that general sensation there. So now with just for 3 or 4 minutes, with strong determination, okay, you say to yourself, I'm going to pay attention to that sensation. You make a determined decision. I'm going to pay attention to that sensation. That's your goal. So you won't do it. Your mind will wander off like after 3 breaths. That's fine. Have another part of your mind. All the bits and pieces of your mind do their job. Attention is paying attention. Intention is I will watch my breath. Attention is paying attention. Then there's mindfulness standing there next to it, and that's going to watch. The moment attention wanders off the breath, mindfulness will bring it back to the breath. It'll keep you on track. Okay, then just think of those little bits of your mind doing their job. Your mindfulness watches, and then the moment attention wanders off, it brings it back to the breath. That's it for 3 quality minutes, okay? Every time you wander off, bring it back. Bring your mind back to the breath. That's it. Stay focused. And now with a steady mind, we can now use our creative imagination. That's literally what we're doing, okay? And don't ever think you can't do it, because we live our lives using our creative imagination. We live our lives visualizing, okay? So we utilize that skill, but now for virtue. So we imagine in front of us. So of course, if you're not familiar with the image, you can't, but just do your best, okay? Imagine at about eye level, this form, this Buddha called Tara. She's green. These Sambhogakayas have like subtle light body, but she's got green light body, like emerald colored green, very beautiful. She's like utterly beautiful. All these Buddhas, they say they're like they're in their youth, so they're totally divine looking. They should make you so happy. They should lift your senses. That's why they're looking like this, to make you kind of feel happy, you know? They're beautiful, so they should be lifting out. We have the senses, so this is also what's happening in Tantra. We're using our senses. We have these objects of the senses, and then they lift us. We see beautiful ones. So you see this beautiful Tara, beautiful face, radiantly beautiful, with her eyes slightly wide open, so beautiful. And her eyes are, you've got to realize she's full of love and kindness, just for you. It's so weird to think this, but you think that way, okay? And if you have a spiritual teacher, a mentor, a lama, a guru, a person heavy with qualities, whom you've chosen as your example of Buddha. You've chosen them. They're yours. You visualize that they are manifesting as Tara for your benefit, solely for your benefit. So Tara's sitting there so beautiful, and she's sitting there like, really, she hasn't got many clothes on. She's got these gorgeous breasts, so beautiful. And she's kind of these decorated, these lovely silken clothes. You see, sort of multicolored around the lower part of her body, and her hands, her legs. Her left leg is drawn in like in meditation, but her right leg is kind of in a relaxed pose, resting on a little multicolored lotus. You know, the right leg resting there, sort of in this pose where she's ready to hop up to help others. She's not in a meditative pose. And she's sitting on a multicolored lotus. And on that lotus, you don't see it, is a moon seat and a sun seat. And they represent wisdom and compassion. Everything in this has a meaning. It's got a real meaning. It's not just some trippy thing. Each thing she's holding, each shape, each color has a meaning, you know? So it's like a visual language, basically. So she's totally beautiful, looking at you, if you can imagine this energy. And when you realize, too, this is not just fantasy. Buddha minds exist. That's what they say. Minds exist. Minds can never not exist. So when minds are enlightened, then they do this. They manage. So we're visualizing that enlightened mind is manifesting in this form, and it's oneness with the mind of our Lama, whom we see as Tara. So it makes it very personal for us, you know. So if she's sitting there with her left leg in these rainbow-colored silken clothes on her legs, you can see that, and she's bejeweled. This is all coming from India, of course. It's just the culture, you know. But we can adjust it. It's okay. She's got these bejewels on her body and beautiful around her neck and her ears, like totally divine, with this sort of tiara on her head. And her hair is partially held up in a top knot. The rest is down her back. You can imagine it, you know. Totally beautiful. And everything's radiant. Everything's made of light. So joyful, so blissful, so light, and so precise. Everything's crystal clear, you know. And then in her right hand, she's holding, her right hand is on her right knee, and the palm is up. And there's this gesture of like generosity, openness, giving, you know. And she's holding between the thumb and ring finger the stem of a blue pala flower, like a blue lotus, that blooms at her right ear. And in her left hand, at her heart, in this gesture, mudra, I think of enlightenment or something, I always forget, the thumb and the ring finger, all the fingers are pointing up, and the thumb and the ring finger too are holding the stem of another blue flower that will bloom at her left ear. Everything's blissful, light, radiant, so nice, so uplifting, crystal clear, radiant, shimmering. So now imagine that from her, we'll keep it very simple, from her heart, you imagine, we think this is our visualization. It's kind of not like the real Buddha yet. We're going to make it the real Buddha. So we visualize from her heart, she sends radiant beams of light, blue light, that go out to all the 10 directions. North, south, east, west, northeast, northwest, north, south, southwest, east, west, whatever it is, it's the 8 plus up and down. There's 10 directions. The beams from her heart go out radiantly. And what it does is hook the energy of all the actual taras pervading the universe. Hooks the energy of of actual taras, and all this energy, full of the energy of taras, comes, all these beams come back and absorb back into my heart. And then what it does is completely to the tara's heart, and makes her now the actual Buddha. Imagine she's now the actual Buddha, and she's oneness with the energy of all the taras in the universe. Imagine this, how amazing. Sahum Bam Ho. They become non-dual, radiant, blissful. So now imagine from her brow, she sends these powerful laser beams of white light, okay, from her brow, that enter into our brow, penetrate our brow, and then completely fill us with this blissful white light. And we imagine this is completely purifying every atom of our body. We're first removing all the pain and heaviness of this body of ours, all the sickness, all the problems, all the obstacles, all the joints and the misery and the problems and the cancer and the sickness and the heaviness and all the problems of our bodies. Totally purifying, full of this radiant white light. She so happily sends this. And imagine it completely purifies our bodies, totally cleans up our bodies, making them light and delicious. Imagine this. Amazing. What this white light does is also the main thing. What it does is, you imagine now, it purifies all the karmic imprints in our mind from all the actions we have ever done since beginningless time with our bodies to harm sentient beings. So we can even imagine it if we've got beginningless lifetimes and beginningless karmic seeds are there that haven't yet ripened as our suffering from having harmed others with our bodies. You imagine all this is annihilated. So we think, if we've had countless lifetimes, we've been animals countless times, and that's the realm in which we do harm most. Spirits are so overwhelmed by their own suffering, and hell beings forget about it. They're just overwhelmed by suffering. Humans can do pretty lot of harm, but the animals living in this incredible fear, incredible grasping, incredible attachment, incredible narrow-minded, living in fear. Their minds are personified by fear. To survive, they're living, killing and being killed, being eaten alive, being harmed brutally. So all the harm we've done, as countless animals, all those karmic seeds in our mind, waiting, latent to manifest as our suffering. Well, we imagine it's all purified. All this light puts atomic bombs under these imprints and totally purifies all the karmic seeds of any harm we've ever done since beginningless time. How amazing. Think this, imagine this, want this, be delighted. And remember, it is the power of our own mind that does this. This negativity is not intrinsic. The more powerful your mind is, the more powerful you think this, the more powerful you do this and realize it, the more powerful the purification is. It is your mind that purifies. Your mind creates negativity. Well, you purify it by creating positivity with your mind. The Buddha doesn't purify you. You do. So be so happy to think this. Radiant light body, so amazing, full of blissful light. Now imagine the white light comes again from precious Lamatara. This time, making your body totally radiant, totally blissful, and effortlessly capable now, of not harming sentient beings. Imagine now it is not possible for your body to harm any being, that whoever sees you, hears you, touches you, smells you, tastes you, will only be benefited by your body. Can you imagine that? Impossible to harm and only to benefit. Imagine being full of that blissful energy. How incredible to be like that. Full of this blissful white light. And the white light comes again from Lamatara, and this time you imagine that you are now capable of manifesting your mind in countless bodies throughout all the realms of existence, solely for the sake of precious mother sentient beings, to benefit them. Countless bodies throughout the universe to benefit sentient beings. Can you imagine? Full of this potential, this blissful white light filling you. How amazing. And Alamatara so compassionate, so happily sends from her throat chakra, her throat, radiant beams of red light, okay? Powerful laser beams that penetrate your throat and completely fill you. And this time first purifies all the nonsense of our speech. First of all, even just our inability to say things clearly, to express ourselves properly, our confusion with speech, unable to say really what we mean or want to say. It's so common. Imagine all that purified, this radiant red light filling us, clarifying our speech, purifying that confusion. And then purifying also, especially all the imprints in our mind from any action we've ever done since the beginning of this time, clearly as humans, as we clever humans. I mean, animals have a few sounds, but they're not very clever. They kind of might shout and yell a little bit to scare people. But humans with our clever concepts, super, super clever speech, our rubbish speech, our garbage speech, our conceptual, our conspiratorial nonsense thoughts, our belief in the anger and the attachment speech and the rubbish speech and the nonsense speech that just vomits out of our mouth, all the lies, not even lies. Sometimes we think we're speaking the truth, but we're speculating. That's the worst one. We think we're speaking the truth, but we don't even know we're not. Or we make up things. We want people to think we're nice people. What time does the shop close, Robina? At 4 o'clock. Are you sure? Yes. And they get there and it closed at 3. Oh, I thought so. No, you had no wisdom. We've upset people. We don't even mean to lie. We do this so often. We have no idea about what's true and what's not. Speculating. Then the harsh speech, abusing people. Then the one of speaking behind backs that causes so much pain and suffering and disharmony, In Dharma centers, it's one of the commonest things. It's so tragic. So tragic. This is a result of relationships and organizations breaking up, all the schisms in Dharma centers, all the breaks up in countries, all the breakups in relationships, in organizations is because of bad mouthing behind backs. So tragic. And then all the rabbiting on about nothing, useless rubbish coming out the mouth, All of this speech that harms others and of course harms us. And really also makes our speech at the moment, makes it useless. Who wants, if you have lying karma, no one will believe a word you're saying. If you have rabbiting on about nothing karma, no one even wants to hear your voice. You don't even exist, People, even if you're not speaking harshly, if you've got some heavy karma from past harsh speaking, people will think you're being rough. So all this is the consequence of negative speech, So we need the power of speech. The main gift of the Buddha is the power of speech. The Buddha can sit there, Tara can look there looking at us beautiful for 1,000,000 eons. If she doesn't open her mouth and give us advice, we will never get enlightened. So the main gift of the Buddha is the power of speech. And how you get it is by refraining from negative speech and being silent and saying mantra. and then saying correct words. We need the power of speech. So imagine all this negativity, all this nonsense disappearing into space, absolutely annihilated by this radiant red light filling us. How amazing. And now, full of the power of speech, can you imagine whoever hears you, even saying good morning, even your laugh, can only be a benefit to whoever hears you. Can you imagine this? Every word you utter, every sound you make is powerful, is beneficial, is useful to others. How incredible, you know? And then, of course, if you're on the bodhisattva path, you need to get things done. So in ordinary life, we need to get things done. And if people don't like our speech or don't believe our speech or don't trust our speech, we can't do anything. So it's powerful. We need speech. How you get it is refraining from negative speech, one day at a time. It's the most miraculous practice. Being silent, not passive aggressive, but consciously silent. And purifying your speech by saying mantra. Because in Tantra, mantra, the purest of sound, is the wind energy, is the air energy. Mantra is speech. Mantra is the wind energy, the air energy is speech, and the purest speech is mantra. You get the power of speech. You can now benefit sentient beings. So being full of this potential, this radiant red light, whoever hears you, whoever is there, whoever hears your voice can only be benefited. How incredible. Be so happy, full of this potential, blissful red light filling us. So Namatara so happily, so compassionately now sends from her heart chakra in the center of her chest, radiant laser beams of blue light, blue like the sky, okay, penetrating our heart chakra, filling us instantly. And now purifying, of course, the source of all the problem, the mind, the thoughts, the delusions, the neuroses, the misconceptions, the nonsense. Ego grasping, the root delusion, and the voices of it, attachment, and the aversion, and all the other nonsense. Instantaneously eradicating all of these, which are the source of our suffering and the source of why we harm others. Instantly purified. Instantly gone. Imagine. How incredible. And even now, but we think this way, but now this is achieving liberation from the suffering but the delusions going, achieving liberation. So already one of the consequences of this, the bonus of this is unbelievable joy, bliss, no longer fear, no longer nonsense. We can't even conceptualize this. It's so outrageous. The mind is radiantly, blissfully joyful. It cannot not be, because the delusions have gone. How incredible. Having the wisdom to see how things exist. And bliss. Amazing, incredible. This is our natural potential. So now this time we're going to now even purify even the subtlest imprints, the residual results of all these delusions. And this is removing the obstacles to omniscience now. So we visualize the three lights together come from Lamatara: white to the brow, red to the throat, and blue to the heart. So they come together. And this time, this purifies, it's sort of like a second rinse. I think it's like a second rinse, you know, a second rinse. You've cleaned up the nonsense, and now you put the second rinse on, and you're removing even the subtlest imprints, the residue, the residual of the delusions. And now you achieve omniscience. So imagine these three coming together, and now you become the Buddha. Incredible. And this includes wisdom and all the virtues. Remember them, all the virtues, all the goodness, all the love, all the compassion, all the wisdom. These are our true nature. These are fully developed now. This is who we really are. This is our nature. And in the aspect of, we think in the aspect of Tara, power, confidence, you know, based on compassion, based on wisdom, but the aspect is power, confidence, action, courage to get things done, fearlessness, you know, imagine this, totally radiant, totally blissful, totally joyful, totally wise, our true nature. Imagine. So now imagine Lavatar is so joyful, so happy for us, you know. You imagine that the multicolored lotus, the moon seat and sun seat dissolve up into her body. And then she very happily comes to sit above our crown, facing the same way as us. And now so happily, joyfully wanting to be oneness with our body, speech, and mind, she very happily dissolves into green light, absorbs through our crown. And now imagine that the energy of the Lama, energy of Tara, the body, speech, and mind of the Lama, the body, speech, and mind of Tara merge with the energy of my body, speech, and mind. They become union oneness, Lama Yeshe would say. Imagine this, you know. This is me. Imagine this. And now you think, well, I'm the Buddha now, but what good is this for sentient beings? Why have I become a Buddha from countless eons practicing all this and driven by my compassion only to want to benefit others? Now I'm a Buddha. What am I going to do? I'm better help sentient beings. So you imagine now all the beings of the universe right in front of you, all the enemies. To the left, all your beloved friends, and to the right and above and below and behind and to the sides, all the 99.9% of the rest of the universe, the strangers. Visualize them all there, all in the form of human beings, which is the form they can get enlightened in. The whole of the universe full. In front of you, the ugly ones. To the left, your beloveds. And to the right and everywhere else, the so-called strangers. Pervading space, okay? Above you, behind you, to the sides, in front of you, as far as the horizon. All living beings in the form of humans, which is the form they can get enlightened in. Just imagine. And particularly have in the front of you the particular beloveds to the left and the particular ugly ones in the front, the ones who are upsetting you at the moment, ones you don't like, who hurt you, have harmed you, and then to the right the rest and all the others, you know. But the particular friend and enemy, it's good to have them right there. Think of them. So now you think they're all the same. They ought to be happy. They're the same. They're not the same from the point of view of intelligence or beauty or even qualities. Some are really monsters. It's true. But they're all same from the one point of view. They want to be happy and do not want to suffer. From this perspective, they are identical. And for this reason, we want them to be happy and don't want them to suffer. That's love and compassion, okay? For this reason. Because they want that. For their sake. So now we visualize from our heart trillions of little green taras emanating out. First into the enemies, consciously into the mean, ugly ones, you know? You imagine these taras going into their heart, and first you see it taking away their pain, taking away their suffering, taking away their delusions. Then the friends, you send the taras to them, taking away their pain and their suffering, and then all the strangers, to the right, above, below, behind, and in front, everywhere you go. All of them, billions of little taras going from all 10 directions, from our heart into all the 10 directions, entering into the hearts of all these beings, taking away their pain, taking away their suffering, taking away their delusions. So happily imagining this, wanting this. That's the practice of compassion. See them in the front, see the enemies, the mean, ugly ones. You think it's so horrible. They're free of suffering. Be so happy for them because they can stop harming others now. Imagine that. So relieved, your beloveds, so relieved to see them free of suffering. So happy. And free of the delusions in particular, which causes them to have future suffering. Free of that. All their karma purified. Imagine. And now, Lamatara, no, we are Tara. So now we send more little billions of Taras, and this time we now give them everything they want. This is the practice of love. May you be happy. So we now send Taras to all of them, and you give the enemies everything they need to make them happy. And all the suffering people, whatever they need, you imagine them having it. All the friends, the enemies, and the strangers, you give them everything they need to give them what they need so they can be happy. So happily do this. Imagine they're happy, giving everything they need. If they need food, they have food. If they need money, they have money. If they need beauty, they have beauty. If they need free, if they need whatever it is they need, they get it. Can you imagine? So delightful. Want this. Now, you want them to become Buddha. They're Tara. They've got potential too. So now the Taras go out and now they turn into Tara. They turn into their own Tara. Imagine this. Transforming into trillions of Taras, pervading space. They realize their true nature. How amazing. All of them. Trillions of Taras. Radiant green light bodies. And now we visualize all of them from all the 10 directions, all absorbing into us. They all come from all the 10 directions and come into us, absorbing into us, enhancing 1 billion times our own Buddha nature. Okay, imagine even more brilliant, more amazing. These Taras. Well, actually, I forgot a step. Stop them coming. I forgot a step. Now what we do is we offer. Sorry, we forgot this one. Now we imagine making offerings to all these billions of Taras, all the objects of the senses, all the most radiant things, divine lights, beautiful music, all the most blissful things in the universe. We imagine we offer to them, to these Taras, all these marvelous gifts offer. Imagine that. And they all get utter joy receiving them. Imagine. They're so happy, radiant, blissful, happy. Now they absorb into you, enhancing your Tara nature. Even more amazing. Think this. More powerful, more blissful, more powerful, more action, more wisdom, more compassion. Limitless, limitless. So now you imagine, we just imagine now kind of expand to pervade the universe. Just imagine yourself pervading, expanding to pervade the universe. Okay, imagine this. You pervade the universe. There's nowhere where you are not. This infinite, blissful, radiant energy pervading the universe. Okay, imagine this. And just stay like in that with no thoughts. Vast, radiant, blissful, clear. No thoughts. Now we can, I forgot to sing some mantras, so imagine we just do that now, okay? So now we just become ourselves again as Tara, and we say a few mantras, and we visualize all the mantras are, they're Sanskrit sounds, syllables, and they're said to be the most pure. But Tibetans haven't translated, they leave them in Sanskrit, they don't translate them. So the Sanskrit sounds are said to be the most pure. So they purify our own energy completely just by saying them. So imagine now singing a few times, we just imagine, just say the mantra, sing the mantra a few times, and we imagine we're sending out blessings to the whole universe. Imagine that, you know. I forgot, we've done it before. Om Tare Tu Re Swaha. 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 And now we finish with the 4 immeasurable thoughts, these amazing, marvelous, big, fat thoughts of the Bodhisattva. Okay, so courageous, so amazing. So we think, may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment, hatred, and ignorance. May they abide so. This third one is the courage of the Bodhisattva. I will make this happen. That's the courage of the Bodhisattva. That's the Tara energy. I will make this happen. This courage, I will make this happen, as if you did it on your own, by yourself alone. That's the courage we need to cultivate. That's Tara. I will make this happen. Please, Guru Tara, please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could be free of suffering and its causes. That's compassion. First one's equanimity. May they be free. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could have happiness in its causes. And Rinpoche says that to remember the happiness of enlightenment as well. That's love. May they be happy. I will make this happen. May they have them. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were never parted from higher rebirths and liberation's excellent bliss. May they never be parted. I will make this happen. Please, Lama Tara, bless me to be able to do this. Okay, that's it. So what we've done there is every single tiny thought we had, because it was a virtuous thought, every single one is sowed the seed for exactly that to happen. It's the nature of thoughts. If I say, I will get an ice cream, guess what the result will be? It's hardly rocket science. That's exactly what we've done. 30 minutes, more than that, 45 minutes of non-stop positive thoughts, completely insane, over the top, outrageous, ridiculous positive thoughts. You should be going to have bed with such a happy mind you can't believe it. That's the benefit of Tantra, this big fat view based on bodhicitta. Do you understand, people? So that's it, we're done, finished. So we just think in English, due to these virtuous thoughts that we have created because of these actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Tara and lead all suffering sentient beings without exception to that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel, may this amazing attitude of bodhicitta to never give up benefiting sentient beings that has not arisen in the minds of others, may it rise and grow. And those that have it, where it has arisen, never diminish, increase more and more and more. So that in the land of circle by snow mountains, you're the source of all happiness and good, all powerful 10 rays and hands of please remain until samsara ends. So let's do the swift prayer. Even though Rinpoche is here, we're still going to do the swift prayer to come back quickly in the form we can see. So we do that still. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, together with the lineage masters, all the opposite refuges of the infinite land, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Mooni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request, while striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and when mother living beings who suddenly depart in peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, for the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean, three jewels and great waves, the bodhicitta, the children of the victorious ones, may the smile, I mean, he's back already in Nepal, we don't know where he is yet, but may the smile of this reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
So for Women of Wisdom, celebrating the living legacy of Buddhist women, Seichen Ling is proud to have partnered with key organizations whose work aligns with the aims of the series. The mission of the Treasury of Lives is to provide access to Tibetan history and religion through the life stories of all people from the region. However, with such a shockingly low number of biographies being of women, the Treasury launched their Women Initiative, a dedicated effort to better balance the site with the goal of publishing 100 biographies of women over 3 years. For our Women of Wisdom series, we are highlighting one of the bios from the Women Initiative at the end of each presentation in the program. We heartily encourage all those attending events in the series to explore the work of the Treasury of Lives.
Okay, good, wonderful.
And then
Have you got that? Have you seen that tanka that His Holiness created many years ago? Have you ever seen it? Of all the women? Have you not seen it?
no,
You must get
I
it
must see it.
immediately.
Yeah.
It's His Holiness created it years ago, and it's finally been done. And I've seen, you can get copies of it in A4. It's a Buddha surrounded by entire female holy beings from all the centuries. He created it for us.
Wow.
So beautiful. I can't
Never
remember where I
even heard
saw
of
it. But it's around, it's available to us.
Okay.
We've got to get that.
Okay.
So let me just tell you about the
But did you hear what I
first-
said, people? Did you hear it?
Yeah, I'm-
Yeah,
yeah.
yes.
It's your job, you get it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Good.
The first Samding Dorje Pakmo Choki
What do we do?
Drama,
You mean we have to read it, do we?
born in 1422, she died from around 1455 to 1467.
Wonderful.
She was born into royalty. She was a bright and precocious child, said to have been able
Are you
to
going to read the
speak
whole thing, are you?
No.
very quickly.
read
Sanskrit
the
at
whole
this
thing.
age 3.
She says no.
A claim which
Stop.
would have
She
been
said the whole
related
no.
to her secret identity as the tantric deity Vajrasattva. She married into another royal
We don't have to if he
family,
wants to do it.
and
No
after the
choice.
death of her child, she announced her resolute wish to take religious vows, which she did, presumably in an effort to follow the example of the Buddha. Choki Droma
Presumably, we're not sure you
also
mean.
spent
We have doubts.
a deal of
Terrible.
time traveling around as a begging nun. She was devoted to her guru, the great scholar teacher, Bodang Chokli Namgyal, who himself was particularly sensitive to women's issues and was a great innovator in this respect.
Okay.
And on behalf of Seichen Ling, Venerable Robina, we
Yeah.
are so happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. Okay, good. That's it, people. Thank you so much. Thank you, people. So kind.